are people in it because their case is, we're going to see dollar debasement and all of these different things. And I think increasingly are people in it after hearing what you and Stan Druckenmiller said last fall and realizing the institutional interest is just going to keep growing and growing. And they just figure they'll ride that wave. Bitcoin is now up, I think, so when we spoke, I want to say it was around 14. So it's up about 4 times since we spoke in value. How much more upside is there? Even if you think there's upside, is there a lot more upside, do you think?
I said we had video difficulties, so I was going to have my Bitcoin hat on when you answered that. Bitcoin baseball cap. So I mean, Bitcoin. There are many different ways to look at Bitcoin. The simplest one is just supply and demand. You mentioned the mainstreaming of it and the institutional acceptance of it, and I think the supply is growing 2% a year, and demand is growing faster. That's all you really need to know, and that means it's going higher. So I think that it's going to have these kinds of volatile days. It was down 20% peak to trough over the weekend. But back in 2017, which was a bubble, I don't think this is a bubble at all in Bitcoin. I think this is now the beginning of a mainstreaming of it. But even back then during the bubble, it went down 20% on 5 different occasions. So volatility is with Bitcoin. Volatility is the price you pay for performance. And I think that I think it's like digital gold. That's the first stop in it. And gold is about a $10 trillion asset category, and Bitcoin's $1 trillion, and it's infinitely divisible, or almost so. It's easily transportable and can be sent anywhere in the world if you have a smartphone. So it is a much better version as a store of value than gold. And then there's $15 trillion of negative yielding bonds out there. Why would you have that when you could own something that at least has the potential to go up?
Mm-hmm. And do all of these arguments then extend to other cryptos? A lot of people are now, I look at whether it's videos on social media or you name it. I mean, there's this constant interest in chasing the next big crypto performer, and a lot of them are up even more, I mean, way more in some cases than Bitcoin. Do you dabble in any of those, or do you just stick with Bitcoin?
No, I don't fiddle around with any of those others. There's a lot of good theoretical work done on lock-in and path dependence in technologies. Brian Arthur at Stanford is one of the leaders in that area. He's also written another book called The Nature of Technology. But effectively, when you have a technology like Bitcoin, what happens is that there's a explosion of new technologies that come along with it. So now we have about 8 or 10,000 of these ICOs. But eventually, those things lock in, and there's a dominant company, or a dominant entity, and that's why the antitrust people are going after Amazon and Google and Facebook, and because those companies are so dominant, and I think Bitcoin will be the dominant technology in this emerging asset category.
Happy Bitcoin Tuesday, freaks. It's your boy, Matt Odell, here for another episode of Citadel Dispatch. This is episode 18 of the interactive live show about Bitcoin, distributed systems, privacy, and open source software. Excited to be joined here by our good friends, Evan Kaludis and Ben the Carmen, both returned guests. I want to do a quick shout out to our ride or die freaks joining us in the live chat. You guys make this worth it, whether you're coming in through Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube. To those freaks joining us from the audio streams, we have our 2 podcast feeds. One's the Tales from the Crypt feed, and one is the dedicated Citadel Dispatch feed. Those, what you heard in that intro there was that intro clip there was CNBC host Kelly Evans talking to legendary investor Bill Miller, who sounds pretty fucking bullish on Bitcoin, and she sounds completely lost. And I just have to highlight the fact that she did try and push him into the shitcoin rabbit hole, and he just kind of shoot her off, which is a massive evolution from 2017, what we used to see on mainstream media. Before we get started, I want to just do a quick special shout out to all the freaks who are supporting the show via streaming sats and podcasting 2.0 apps, whether that's Sphinx or Breeze. That's fucking awesome. It's just really cool seeing the sats fly in. And just shout out to the teams that are managing those software stacks. Specifically, the Sphinx tribe is really fucking cool that we all have that tribe that we're talking in there. So cheers to all the freaks over there. And also cheers to all the freaks supporting the show via LNURL and tippin.me. That's what it's about, guys. I want to keep this ad free. I want to keep this community funded. And that's the plan. And you guys make that possible. So cheers to you guys. So with all that said, Ben, Evan, you guys just came back from Austin. Hit us with the best FOMO. How the fuck was it?
Well, not quite. Ben is already down in Austin, right, Ben?
Yeah, I live here now. So,
true.
So I was down there for something like 9 days. So I got in early, got off to a hot start, fired some guns with Ben and some company. Then we had Guns and Bitcoin the next 2 days, which was really incredible and unique conference. I highly recommend you attend in the coming years if you get the chance. And then just hanging around Austin, getting to meet a bunch of Bitcoiners I hadn't met in real life. We had a Bit Devs at Unchained Capital, which was amazing. Ben, Ryan Gentry, and Justin Moon lead that down there. That was a really great experience. And then we had one of our favorites. We had a beefsteak on like a farm. It was quite an experience. I think it was the biggest one Josh has done, maybe. The biggest one I've definitely been to. And
was it 200 people, I think?
Something like that. We had
the meetup was like about 200 people. Like there literally was no more room to stand in the building, and we rented chairs even for the event, and still there's no room. It was really amazing to see how many people showed up. And at the beginning, we did like raise your hand if you've never been to a Bitcoin meetup, and like half the people raised their hand, which is really cool to see. Like there's a ton of people coming in to the space, or at least to their first meetup, and it was a ton of fun.
And that Bit Devs was at Unchained Capital's office in Austin, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so much FOMO, guys. Sorry I couldn't make it. It seemed it could have been one of the best conferences of the year.
I mean, it was bigger than Guns and Bitcoin. Funny enough, I mean, if we had 200 people and Guns and Bitcoin was 150, somehow we beat them.
So Guns and Bitcoin was in Austin right before this Bit Devs, right? So did you both go to Guns and Bitcoin?
Yeah. We were hanging out together down there. The day before we went shooting. The Friday, I believe, was the conference day, and they sort of split that off into a guns track and a Bitcoin track, and it was all about 3D printed guns and all the advancements there. And then there was a Bitcoin track where they're talking about privacy, and a bunch of the samurai-related guys were giving talks and teaching people about the tools. I stuck on the guns track because it's my guns knowledge that was more lacking than my Bitcoin knowledge, but I'm looking forward to some of the videos coming out, hopefully, fingers crossed. I know I wanted to watch Diverters talk, especially. We had a showdown there. No blood was shed, so that was good. But yeah, it was just amazing. My main takeaway is that this small little niche thing that was like a hobbyist thing is slowly transforming into like the most advanced part of like the gun industry. Like all the R&D is like happening with these people who are just interested in like, enabling people to have more liberty and be able to construct these things in homes. It's amazing.
It was really cool to see how, like, I didn't know how deep it was that it's gotten where, like, now there's, like, 22-year-old kids building, like, belt-fed 3D printed magazines and, like, or just, like, oh, this guy built a shotgun out of parts he got at Lowe's and it, like, fires accurately. Like some of that stuff was insane, and I'm really glad I went because, like, I followed, like, 3D printed gun stuff on Twitter before, but I got a full baptism in 3D printed gun that weekend and learned so much more.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like just the amount of time and detail and engineering that they spend just to keep them safe Like the default mode that they want for all these weapons is to fail in like a graceful manner, like away from the user so no one gets hurt. Like the first 3D printed gun, the Liberator that Cody Wilson put together, like that thing was a piece of shit.
Literally,
I really like it, but it was just a piece of shit. It was a one shot, right? And the upper was prone to explode all the time. So yeah, it's really nice to see the innovations being made from people doing like pipe shotguns to plastic lower AK-47s.
you're only supposed to get like 2 shots out of it, right? You're like supposed to shoot someone with a gun and then take their gun.
Yeah. It was really just a proof of concept to show that this all could be done. But,
I mean, I might be completely butchering it, but if I recall correctly, it was named after a like cheap ass gun that we dropped in World War II from like parachutes to resistance fighters, so that they would have some like basic weapon to shoot the Nazis with, and then take their guns, and that's like what he named it after. But yeah, that was like the original FUD against 3D printed guns, right? Was that they were going to blow up. So it makes sense, I guess, that the industry is pushing to not have that happen.
Yeah, I shot probably 20 rounds through 3D printed guns on the second day, and yeah, I mean, I still have my hands, and like surprisingly, like they're still very accurate, and like it feels like a real gun, and I mean, they jam a little bit more often if you're not like you have to like hold it tight, but all the stuff is like getting worked out, the kinks and stuff, and I'm sure like 10 years from now there'll be like almost no difference, or if not, they're better than a real manufactured gun today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's going to be like there's a major shift happening, right? Like people aren't ready for like what happens next based on this, right?
No, I mean, listen, have fun putting the toothpaste back in that tube.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, like gun control is dead. There's nothing you can do to stop the proliferation of this data, right? It'd be like trying to say, oh, we're going to stop file sharing. Look how that turned out.
So the freaks in the chat seem a little upset with us for this very eloquent Bitcoin conversation we're having. Before we move on to before we move on to Taproot, I want to talk about transaction fees. There's no single mempool, but mempools, if you look up like a mempool.space, who has their own hosted mempool, you can see right now, and I'm sure most people who have tried to use Bitcoin over the last 5 or 6 days have noticed that fees have increased significantly. And I think there's a lot of confusion, especially among new coiners, about what that means, why fees exist, why they are necessary, and how to basically plan around them. So I think it's a very important topic that's very topical right now, and it's just a good place to start. So you want to start there, Evan? Like why you want to get to the freaks, like why we have transaction fees in the first place? Like why can't I just send a transaction for no money?
Yeah, sure thing. So one of the constraints that we have on Bitcoin is a block size. There's only a limited amount of transactions that could get in to every block that's supposed to get processed every 10 minutes or so. And basically, the main crux of why we have this limit at all is to keep Bitcoin decentralized. In our community, it's always been very valuable that an average user is able to spin up a node and do so in a reasonable amount of time, even with not great internet, to do it for a cheap cost. It's very important that user can get a hard drive and like a Raspberry Pi and run one of these node projects. And basically the nodes, I mean the alternative shitcoins that don't have these block sizes or have bigger block limits, they're more prone to being centralized, as it's not so easy for individuals to run their own nodes. So if push comes to shove in those ecosystems, it's easier to go after the choke points, go after an AWS, for example, on some of the chains with bigger blocks, bigger sizes. And you could effectively cripple the whole network there. So the point of with Bitcoin is that we're going after, legacy institutions, central banks that have run the planet for 100 years plus. We need to make sure that our protocol stays resilient and decentralized. And as a result, you need to end up paying some fees to get your blocks in. Fortunately, the layer one where you're paying all these fees is not really what you're going to be using for like instant settlement in like your day-to-day transactions. So it's so okay that these transactions aren't going through instantly, or you have to pay to get them processed. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think like a good just example to like make it like more clear. It's like, if we didn't have a block size limit, I could write a bot that produces a terabyte worth of transactions every day. And now you need to store a terabyte worth of data every day. And, that quickly become infeasible to store for the average person. And, to keep that from happening, we have a limit of how many transactions can be produced in a single block and then, subsequent day. And, right now we're getting, we had a huge decrease in mining hash rate. So because of that, blocks aren't coming out as quickly. So therefore, we're doing less transactions in a single day, which is why we have this huge spike in fees.
So their fees are used as a spam prevention mechanism to reduce the load on the network. So you can't just do like a denial of service attack. On top of that, they pay miners. So fees are absolutely necessary. A sustained fee market is absolutely necessary for the long-term security of the Bitcoin network.
Yep.
Ben, so with all that, so this point of this show, the point of Citadel Dispatch, the point of us meeting up every Tuesday, is to discuss actionable things. So I think the number one thing that people should realize is, and we're gonna dive into speculation here and stuff like that, but the reason we all expect fees to increase over time, long term. Fees, I got a lot of shit yesterday, but I said fees are designed to pump forever. This particular spike is primarily caused by this loss of hash rate. And because you have this loss of hash rate, blocks are coming in slower until we get the next difficulty adjustment, which will bring the difficulty down, and then blocks will come back in at that target time of around 10 minutes. But until then, we're getting less blocks in the same amount of time than we usually would. So as a result, if transaction demand is the same or increases, your fees should increase. It's a market. It's a free market. So with all that said, for the average user, if you weren't prepared for high fees, and we're going to talk about what it means to be prepared for high fees, your best move is really to just sit this out and wait for the difficulty adjustment, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, right now, I think mempool.space has like average fees like $20. So, if you don't want to pay $20 worth of fees for a transaction,
271 sats per byte.
Yeah. So, if you're not a big baller like that and don't want to pay that, then, then you're forced to hodl, which, might turn out good, might turn out bad, but, we think it'll turn out well.
So question, when is this difficulty adjustment due? I know that it typically happens every 2 weeks or so, although it's by block height, right? It's something like 2016 blocks.
Right. So we're entering into FUD territory a little bit. But this hash was pulled towards the beginning of the difficulty adjustment, which means it will take us much longer than usual to reach it. Usually the difficulty adjustment is supposed to be targeting 2 weeks. It looks now, I'm trying to pull it up on my screen. It looks now like we have 1,400 blocks to go, 1,462 blocks to go, and they're targeting April 30th, which is about 10 days from now, for the retarget. But that's an estimate, right? It's an estimate about average block time. All short-term hash rate numbers are basically, people are just taking the difficulty and the number of blocks we've had over a certain amount of time, and they're making a guess on how much hash rate there is. There's no way to verifiably prove how much hash rate there is besides working it out backwards. Another thing to keep in mind, though, here, which is really cool about fees and this free market for fees, is in this situation, because fees are pumping, it encourages miners that aren't online or might not have been profitable before to turn on their rigs and get us through that difficulty adjustment, right? Because as blocks slow, the fee revenue goes up. The higher the fee revenue goes, the more incentive it is for a new miner to come in and turn on old hash power, right?
Yeah, the last block had 3.13 Bitcoin worth of fees. So yeah, it's like half, or so total reward is 9.38. So like a third of the reward is fees right now, which is really enticing for them.
Yeah, to all the miner freaks out there, drinks are on you. They're having a great time. So let's talk about the speculation, right? The speculation is that there was an accident at a coal mine in China, in a province where there's a large contingency of Bitcoin miners, and as such, the Chinese government turned off a bunch of coal factories over there. And I guess these miners, during the wet season, they use excess hydro, and then during the dry season, they use coal. And as a result, they're offline for a couple weeks because of this government action. So how do we feel about that?
Makes sense. I mean, I've never been to China, but that's what they're saying. It makes sense why the miners would go down. It's funny that you mentioned it's like the wet season miners, because we had like a similar thing happen like 6 months ago when all of them moved from the hydro dams to, I guess, up here, and now we're experiencing it again where they all left and we have to deal with difficulty.
What I'm being told is, and see, as I remind you, freaks, when we're talking about hash on short-term time basis, we're either using these estimates that are derived, or people are just trusting the miners on the ground what they're saying, right? Which is a very not Bitcoin thing. Is that you're just trusting words from Chinese miners over there and people in the know. But what I'm being told is that they're going to do that transition again, but this time from coal to hydro in about a month, like 3 to 4 weeks. And this power situation like screwed them right before that transition. So there's a chance that they have this plus them moving, or maybe the smart ones are just moving already right now and just getting ready. The reason I said like we're kind of entering FUD territory is because so when I first read this story out of China, I read it as it just sounded like proof of stake FUD, right? Like 40% of the hash rate was pulled off the network by the Chinese government from dirty coal mines, and like proof of stake is the best. Like that was my hardened Bitcoiner read of the story originally, and now it's kind of been confirmed by a bunch of people, and they're saying it's not a FUD line. But there's two takes here that I've heard, and I'm curious on your opinion on them. The first take is that there's been Bitcoin deniers have used the accusation that 70% of the hash rate is located in China, and this proves that like 30 or 40% is located there. And so that's a bullish thing. And then the second take is, this is what it would look like if you had some kind of government-sponsored attack on Bitcoin. You early in a difficulty adjustment, you would pull a shit ton of hash off the network, or as much hash as you could pull off the network. Make the difficulty adjustment last as long as possible. And then maybe if you had other hash, like pull some shenanigans while you're shadow mining a competing chain or something like that. And then I guess there's a third thing that I've heard, where could this be like some kind of conspiracy of a cartel of Chinese miners to try and boost fees or boost shitcoins? So I'm curious on your guys' opinion on those three, because we do this show every week, and it's just fun to speculate on this shit.
Interesting. All right, so let's tackle the first one first. So you said that this shows that China only has 30% of the hash rate. Well, wouldn't that only be for this province? Unless like the proportion of miners are like disproportionately only in this province. you would think that it would be higher than 30-35%.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't prove anything. I 100% agree. The only thing it proves is that 30% of the hash rate, can turn off together. It doesn't say that there's any other.
Crazy. I mean, yeah, it's better than 70% of the network going down, right? But still not reassuring, and goes to show that mining still needs to be further decentralized. But at the same time, things are still moving, albeit at a slower rate. Our blocks are, still churning out. It may be closer to 13 minutes than 10 minutes. But yeah, it just goes to show some of the resilience of Bitcoin. Now, the second question was about state-sponsored attacks and what this would look like. It's like, yeah, we're totally going to see this in different jurisdictions where there are crackdowns. It just happens to be that China has such a huge conglomerate of these miners that we see this go down. But who knows? In the future, we could see even much greater difficulty adjustment drawdowns than this. And it'd be hard to crack down on all the mining in the world, given personal operations and whatnot. But it's easier to pull the switch on the bigger operations. And then what was the third one? You said that was this potentially done for fee FUD or to pump altcoins?
Not fee FUD necessarily. Well, the second part was fee FUD. The first part was, so you have like a cartel of miners, right? Like they all know each other. Mm-hmm. We know like it's an incestuous community over in the Western world. It's definitely, we don't have an eyesight into the the Eastern markets as much, but like it's definitely super incestuous over there too, right? Like there's probably like 10 dudes that are like the movers and shakers over there, and they all known each other for fucking years. The conspiracy or the theory is that they strategically cut hash to boost fees so that their fee revenue goes up, or to create fee FUD to boost shitcoins. Right, because like I look, all the Bcash shills have all come out of the woodwork. It feels very 2017 in terms of fee FUD on Twitter right now.
I don't know if they're using it to at least for like maybe the altcoin thing makes sense, but for the like fee, like bumping the fees up so then they could claim that. I don't think that makes too much sense because they're like. They're losing it's been 4 or 5 days worth of mining revenue. I don't know if the mempool will fill enough for them to get that back if they turn them back on right now.
But what if they turn them back on like 5 days before the target? They still get some of that fee revenue. There's still going to be a massive backlog. They get like a 25% reduction or 20% reduction in the difficulty. I mean, this is why the difficulty adjustment's so long, right? So it can't be easily gamed. But if you have 40% of the hash, maybe there is a gaming mechanism.
Yeah. And there's probably some math equation you can figure out to calculate if you can. But it's all like, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. And it could pay off, I guess. But I don't know. That'd be kind of a weird bet to make.
Yeah, I mean, my guess. Yeah, go on, Evan.
Oh, I just came up with an even better conspiracy theory out of what you just said. So I think that the miners are colluding to push everyone onto Lightning Network,
or maybe Blockstream paid them.
It's Alex Bosworth. He has ties to China, and he just wants to make those routing fees. That's my theory.
Blockstream paid them to get them to get people to use Liquid now.
Yeah, those lizards they have pull, so got to watch out for them.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear here, I think
Evan, we're supposed to keep that in secret. What the hell?
I know Samsung's gonna be pissed.
Just to be clear here, I think the first one, the state-sponsored confirms thing that's bullshit. That's just a weird bullish slant to make. A state attack, probably bullshit. it's just something to keep in mind. Like if you were going to attack it using a hash rate kind of attack, I think that's how you would do it. You would just pull a lot of hash. That's how you would see the first set of the attack. So I'm kind of curious. And then the third part is, I also think is probably a fucking stretch, but it's just an interesting thing to think about. Just because that, like 6 months ago when it happened to the rainy season thing, and we were just all told the rainy season thing, like that was the first time we were ever told the rainy season thing. They just pretended like that was like the thing that happens every 6 months. Like I never, right? Like we had never seen a drawdown that hard. And it was just weird. Like everyone's just like, oh yeah, that's just what happens every 6 months. Like all the miners just like put their stuff in trucks and drive it over. But so that was just my adversarial thinking. And then the last but not least, would you guys agree that if you're like a big player and you're doing major transactions, like, maybe require more confirmations before you settle things? Just because, you have all this hash that's like kind of unaccounted for out of nowhere in a single difficulty adjustment. Is that like a safe advice, or is that just over paranoid?
I think that's safe advice. I know there's like some papers that have been written that's like, in theory you want 51% attack to attack, but there's some like games you could play that you only use like 30 or 40% and still like effectively attack the network. So yeah, wait for 6 confirmations instead of 1, and that's probably a better idea.
Yeah, it's nice that we at least have this mechanism built in. Like you count the blocks to calculate how much security you want. So it's nice that everyone can at least adjust that depending on their risk threshold.
So, Evan, I'm happy I have you here. Catan famously said that he would die on the hill for 1 sat per byte. Narrator, he died on the hill. You in November, you said to him that you were ride or die with him, 1 sat per byte forever. I just want to because I want to check my bias a little bit, because I've been the opposite way. I've been feeling fee FOMO for fucking a year and a half now. I'm like, fees are going to happen. This is one of the reasons I've been so outspoken about CoinJoin, about, learning about coin control, learning about Lightning, getting your Lightning channels open. Like people who have like their Lightning channels open right now are they're good to go. But it's hard to do this in a high fee environment. This is definitely a weird kind of outlier in terms of this much hash leaving the network at once. I don't really remember, except for maybe 6 months ago when we were told about the rainy season thing, anywhere close to this much hash going off in a single difficulty adjustment. Is this the start of the next major sustained fee cycle? Like we haven't seen the mempool clear this whole year. It has not cleared yet this whole year. Is this kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it starts like this next sustained fee market, or what do you think happens?
That's assuming that our drawdown in the bear market, as far as transaction count, at least I guess, isn't so severe. So I would say that we're still going to have this crazy fee environment for the next, let's say, 11 months or so, at least, right? But then, in the next couple of years, who's to say it doesn't clear out a couple of times at least? So my point is that, over time, these fees, they are going to trend upwards. This is sort of going to become the normal in our bull markets. But I haven't quite accepted that, at least I don't think that we're not going to see like low fee rates again. I expect sometime late next year, middle of next year, we'll probably see 1 and 2 Satoshi per byte blocks.
Well, when do you think 1 sat per byte is going to clear again?
I don't know. Probably not till March or April of next year. I feel like this bull market's just going to.
Why are you so bearish?
I'm bearish still, right?
Yeah. We'll see. What do you think? What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Evan says. Like, previously we were, we could get like a 5 sat per byte in on a weekend sometimes, and but otherwise during the week it was only going up. So we're gonna have to get many weekends in again to have that negative pressure to clear some of this mempool, and then and then every week during this bull market, it's going to fill back up again. So I don't know, probably till like 6 months into the next bear market or something, it'll actually clear. But we'll see.
To the people watching our video feed right now, you can see the 1 year chart, and that's a pretty crazy 1 year chart. I mean, that just looks like. Is that my bias showing that I'm looking at this and I'm just like, it's going to be even crazier than 2017, like in terms of sats per byte fees. Let's forget about USD fees. People get trapped in this idea of talking about fees in USD. Fees in USD matter way less than fees as a sat per byte. This chart is sat per byte, and the reason is because your UTXOs are in sats, right? So if you have a UTXO that's 500,000 sats. You don't care what the USD cost to move it is. You care what the sats cost to move it is. The percentage that you have to pay to move that. And we have this theory. We have this concept called dust, right? Which is when that fee in sats goes above the UTXO value. So I mean, I look at this and I'm just like, fuck. But I've just been saying that for a year and a half. So maybe that's just the bias talking.
Yeah, it's a scary looking graph.
Okay, I'm glad we agree on that.
What more can I say on that? Hopefully things cool off, but like I said, probably not till next year, April at least. And so yeah, I mean that's got some pretty broad repercussions in the ecosystem. Not even just with people trying to send transactions, but spills into Lightning and people opening up channels. It spills into CoinJoin and people mixing their coins. It's a big problem if this is a sustained thing.
Okay, so we're gonna get to that and then go. Yeah.
I pulled up the all-time chart on my computer, and we're about like half of what the 2017 high was. So, but we're like consistently here. Where this is there, like it lasted for like a week or two. So.
What are you using for the all-time?
I'll
Which site?
In the chat for you.
I'll pull it up on the video. Oh yeah, of course. This one, the OG mempool. So just to make it clear for the freaks, when people say mempool, what they really mean is every individual node basically has a waiting list of transactions in their individual mempool. There is no the mempool, but most mempools of well-connected nodes should look the same. So what we do is, there's a couple of hosted sites that have these mempool charts that show their own mempool. And now what's really cool is because we have these software packages like Raspberry Blitz, Umbrel, whatnot, you can actually easily, use your own instance, use your own node to view the mempool. But we tend to go to these hosted sites just because it's convenient.
Yeah, definitely. And what's the default limit for cores, mempools, or something like 300?
It's 300 megs.
Gotcha.
I fucking can't take a screenshot of here because he's showing my. Well, it is what it is. You're not going to see a screenshot of the full mempool out to 2017. But as Ben said, it does seem like we're kind of half. But also, Ben, like. That was like a very quick hit that like Roger Ver and Co. and Bitmain kind of like I felt like they manufactured. And per our previous conversation, we're agreeing that this isn't manufactured right now, right? This is not an attack. 2017 was started by an attack. Is this an attack?
I think this is giving more credence to because a lot of people speculate that was an attack, or some people no, it's just the end of the bull market and everyone going crazy sending transactions. But I think this is kind of giving credence to that because back then it was like thousands of 1,000 sat per vbyte transactions and stuff like that, and it just looks stupid. Versus now it's just blocks are all consistently around the same fee rate. It's just extraordinarily high. So I think this gives a lot more weight to what people are saying. That was an attack, and this is what an actual real fee market is turning out to be.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So I want to dive into the implications of the sustained fee market because I do kind of think that's what comes next. Before we get there, so there's a couple different scenarios. for people that are listening. And we talk about actionable. Right? The first scenario is they received a transaction and sitting in the mempools and it's unconfirmed, right? What should that person do? It shows in their wallet as unconfirmed. They're waiting for the transaction to confirm as a receiver.
It depends. If you trust your counterparty, you can just wait. If not, you can spend it like back to yourself at a higher fee rate, and just make sure that the average fee rate of the two transactions is high enough to get into like the next block, whatever block target you want.
That's wallet pays for parent, huh?
Yeah. Most wallets, if you have coin control, you can do this manually. Some wallets, like Blue Wallet, even just has a bump fee button you can use, so should be doable.
Most wallets don't have coin control, Ben. If your wallet doesn't have coin control, this is horrible for your privacy because it will link everything in your wallet. But you can send all. You can send all to your own address. That's child pays for parent. Child pays for parent is this idea that you take an unconfirmed transaction, you send it to yourself with a higher fee. The combined fee is what a minor cares about because they get both at the same time, right? And so then the other scenario. Oh, and by the way, to the freaks that are watching, as you can see, I have the mempool, the chart I was trying to get up, where you can see the previous two spikes that happened, or I guess three spikes that happened in the 2017 cycle, and you can compare it to kind of the lead up and this spike that we're seeing now. It does seem like when you look at the actual fee bands, that this does seem a bit healthier. That people are more low time preference, right? A lot of the transactions that seem to be in the mempools are lower fees, just people willing to wait. As Evan said earlier, the default in core is 300 megs. So that means that's the 300 megs of the highest fee transaction. So if your fee falls underneath that range, you will get dropped from mempools, and you will either have to rebroadcast your transaction, or resend your transaction with a higher fee, or resend your transaction at a later date. The other key thing to keep in mind is that core defaults to a 2-week time limit on transactions in individual mempools. So now we get to the next question. I've sent a Bitcoin transaction and it's unconfirmed. What can I do to get it confirmed? And if you wait approximately 2 weeks, it should be dropped from mempools, and then you should be able to resend that transaction with a higher fee or whatever fee you want to send it with. Now, let's say you don't want to wait. What should that user do?
You can do the same thing and child pays for parent it, but in this case, you need to have received a change output. So if you sent like a full like UTXO to someone, you can't do this, and then your only fallback then is replaced by fee, where you just basically redo the transaction but with a higher fee. But you need to signal with this for your first transaction, and auto wallets don't really expose this, so you need to make sure you know what you're doing here. But yeah, it's something like Bitcoin Core or Electrum will let you do this, but I don't know, other wallets don't.
Yeah, make sure you check your settings. Make sure that enable RBF is toggled on. It's a good idea to have that on usually.
I think we have a lot of freaks here that might think like they understand this stuff. I think but we also have a lot of freaks that don't, and I think it's really important that we cover it. But most importantly, I think the demographic of this show is Uncle Jims and future Uncle Jims. And I'm sure you guys are all getting these questions. So I think it's, in these types of situations, it's really good that we work through this stuff together. Because I mean, my phone has just been blown up by people confused by this stuff. So, I mean, a key aspect here is if you're sending to yourself, you just chill. There's no funds at risk. It doesn't matter. If you trust your counterparty, period, obviously you trust yourself, but you trust your counterparty, period, you just chill, right? Mm-hmm. Wait for difficulty adjustment, especially in this particular period where you have this difficulty adjustment causing a short-term high fees. What else did I want to talk about here? Do we have any other nuances that people should know about in terms of transaction fees? Like how should you choose your transaction fee? I'll pull up first of all, this is like all super technical stuff. I know people get a little bit glassy eyed when we talk about this technical stuff. So I'm going to talk about a bullish thing really quickly. The last 3 months, we've had all-time high transaction volumes on Bitcoin when measured in shitty money in US dollars. So, woo, killing it. Okay. Now, let's get back to the nitty gritty. Where was I at there?
You were asking the best way to pick your fee.
How do we pick our fees?
Yeah. So I like to use 2 tools right now for picking that. So one is the lovely mempool.space that we had up there earlier. There it is. So if you take a look at the blocks, the top number with the tilde tells you the average fee for each transaction. And then right underneath that in the yellow, it tells you the range of the fees. So the cheapest transactions in blocks 679946 were as low as 274 sats per VByte. And they also went as high as 3,462 sats per VByte. So typically, you can do 2 things. You can take a look at the last, 6 to 12 blocks and see what the low average was. So right now, if you want to get it in, you got to set it to like 180 pretty much at least, but we're trending towards higher fees. But then there's also a tool built into mempool space that tells you what you should be paying for low priority, medium priority, and high priority transactions. That's below the blocks on the left side right there. And it gives you both the sat per VByte and the dollar equivalent. So that's really good. I also personally like whatthefee.io. It's a really good Bitcoin fee rate estimation table. It's all colored and it tells you, okay, what your time frame is from half hour to 24 hours. And then what percentage of guarantee do you need that this thing is going to go in? So the first block is 5% chance and the last one's 95. And, you typically figure out what your time frame is and you pick what amount of risk you want to accept. If you pick that 95% block all the way to the right, good chances are that it'll go through, but there's still no guarantee as the difficulty can, tumble more.
It can run away from you.
Yeah, it can run away from you, which is why it's really, really important to use RBF if possible. When possible.
So I've talked about this in the past and people just shoot me. And I think this is only a discussion you can really have in a fucking sustained fee market, like an actual high fee market. As far as I'm concerned, there's really no variant. There's either I'm willing to wait or I want it now. If I want it now, I'm going to pay the top level fee. Like the fee that I get in literally at the next block or 2 blocks, like max 3 blocks, because otherwise it's going to run away from me. Otherwise, I'm using RBF replaced by fee. You got to signal that ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And then you're putting in an aggressively low fee and kind of waiting and seeing how it works. Or maybe I guess you go what I'm trying to say is there anyone right now in this fee market going, oh, I'm going to set a nice 130 sat byte per fee, 130 sat per byte fee to confirm in 5 to 7 days?
Maybe if you have someone like a contractor who's invoicing you and they don't necessarily need it right away, but it's sort of a niche case, the important thing to take away from this is you don't really know. All you can do is look back at the past data, looking back at the last couple of blocks, the last day, last week, and, just make the best educated, guess from there.
Ben, you have thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what Evan's saying. Either you kind of have to do in a binary way where either trying to get into the next block or, maybe just want to wait and, just say oh, I'm going to throw out a 20 sat per byte thing and hopefully it gets confirmed in 2 weeks. If you're sending cold storage or something. But otherwise, yeah, especially right now, the fee, I did a transaction a few days ago, and I did like, I used mempool.space's hour-long like 6 block target, and it gave me a 75 sat per byte thing, and then that's 30 blocks away from getting committed. So like, that totally ran away from me. So stuff like that, where it's just like you have to wait it out, and it probably will confirm eventually, but who knows when.
But that was just to yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to worry about it. So I mean, like things like RBF, Lightning, Liquid, maybe like these things get part of the cool part about the fee market is that they get adopted because people get burned in these situations, right? They end up in this situation. They have to. People are humans, and this is just how they learn. So they're not ready for this fee market, and they're going to need to prepare for the future. Now, there's an argument, and I kind of want to discuss it, but we'll discuss this later. So I'm not even going to bring it up yet. If this, we're going to assume, let's assume that we're talking. This is a nice little temporary bump. Matt is extremely biased, and he's just had fee FOMO for a year and a half, and he thinks like fees are going to go out of control. But in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we get like 2 difficulty adjustments, and we're back down to like on Sundays, you're able to get like a 7 sat per byte through or 12 sat per byte through, which quite frankly, you should be happy you're able to get those through. Fucking maximalist waiting for 1 sat per byte. How do the freaks prepare? How do they get ready for the inevitable increase in fees, in my opinion? Like, how do they haven't, they've been listening to this show for this whole year, and they've been listening to Rabbit Hole Recap, Tales from the Crypt for over 2 years. And that they didn't learn from that, but now they realize fees are going to be really high. How do they prepare?
Yeah,
but not in this difficulty adjustment. They should just sit tight for this difficulty adjustment. But after fees come back down, hopefully, how do they do it?
So listen, there's always going to be people that need to spend now, or get their privacy now or whatnot. But, I'm in a position where I have a great sense of relief because my coins that I need to spend on chain are already coined. And, I have them ready to run through post-mix tools or in cold storage. And then as far as, more instant transactions, I have all my Lightning channels open, and I have, ample capital locked up in those channels to deploy on Lightning Network if I need. So as much as it's an inconvenience, I don't get to, if I want to open more channels, I got to eat the fees. If I want to coin join more coins, I got to eat the fees. I don't really need to do those things. Like, I could probably tough it out until next year when the fees start going down again. So the only really thing you can do is when fees are low, take advantage of it. Open your channels, do your mixes, do your, on-chain management, whatever that means to you. And, don't let the opportunities where it does dip, don't let them slip away from you. So start using stuff like What the Fee and the mempool site from Joho or whatever his name is. Use mempool.space. And, keep your eyes peeled on Sundays, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evenings, typically when you see these things clear up. So, if you're in Bitcoin, you should be in this thing for the long haul. So, you got to be making these plays when fees are low and when we're in bear markets, especially.
Ben, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Evan had really good points. Something that you can do, but might not be recommended is consolidating UTXOs. Generally, you don't want to use this with coin joined funds, but maybe if you are coin joining your funds, it might make sense to just consolidate them into one. So now it's cheaper to send, and then you don't have risk where half your funds become dust or something.
So you want to explain why that's horrible for your privacy?
Yeah,
Do you want to explain why that's horrible?
It's really bad if you're doing a coin join and say like I have 10 Bitcoin and I'm going to mix this through Wasabi or Samurai or Join Market, whatever, and you do it. Now you have like 100.1 UTXOs, And then if you just recombine them, well, now they could just see, oh, okay, 100 Bitcoin came in, it got all jumbled up. We don't know where it went. But then someone combined 1,000.1 UTXOs back into 100 Bitcoin, and then they just know, okay, that's the same guy. Like, it's like if everyone walked into a building and shuffle around tats and walked out, but like you're the only one guy with a red shirt on, like, you know, they're gonna be like, okay, it was him anyways. He's the only guy with the red shirt. So you know, you need to be worried about, like, you know, you can't give any links from your before CoinJoining to after, and combining allows you to like find the amount and say like, oh, this amount happened before and after, so they can you know, correlate that to you.
Yeah, correlation attacks are really tricky, especially with stuff like atomic swaps and whatnot, timing analysis and amount analysis. But
So
yeah,
I mean,
you said the red shirt thing too. It's like a lot of these privacy tools, just in general, even outside of Bitcoin, they work better when you have the numbers on your side, when there's more people wearing that red shirt. You know what I mean?
well, no, before we get to the private, it's bigger than privacy tools, right? Like if you combine your transactions, so the single biggest driver of transaction fee burden, on-chain fee burden, is how many transactions you have on the input side.
Mhm.
So let's say you want to send a transaction that's 500,000 sats. Okay. If you have a single UTXO that is 1,000,000 sats, and you pay that 500,000 sats, and you get a single change output back for the remainder 500,000 sats, that is your minimal fee burden. That is the estimated transaction fee that when they show dollar amounts on mempool.space, that's what they're going by. Okay, that is on chain. That is the single cheapest way for you to make a transaction. The input side is where you have the highest cost, just straight up the number of inputs. So that same 500,000 sat transaction that you're making, if instead of making it with a single 1,000,000 sat input, you make it with a 500,000 sat inputs, you're going to pay significantly more in fees. So the argument historically has been, combine your UTXOs into as few UTXOs as possible. It reduces your future on-chain fee burden. But you are obviously linking the ownership of all of those UTXOs. So if I beat Ben in poker, and then I went to BitDevs, and you know, someone paid me because they owed me for dinner, and then I had a KYC transaction that came into the wallet from, you know, Cash App or whatever KYC service, Strike or something, and then you have the non-KYC, maybe you're mining or you got to get it through BISC, and you combine all of those together. Anyone who looks on chain knows if they know one of those UTXOs, they know you own all of them. If Ben is looking at the chain, if Cash App is looking at the chain, they know the Cash App UTXO and they know the Ben UTXO, right? That's the issue. And when you look at the mainstream wallets, they don't show it as UTXOs. The mainstream wallets mostly show it as a single balance. It's not a single balance. You really have a bunch of little bills, or UTXOs, bills in terms of cash, like all these UTXOs that are making up your wallet in the back end that you don't see if your wallet doesn't have coin control. This is why all wallets should have coin control.
Yep. Matt, you nailed it. You irreparably link these transactions, these UTXOs together when you consolidate the outputs. And Matt, some users, they have this misconception. They think, okay, yeah, sure, I'm going to just consolidate my inputs, but I'm so clever, I'm going to just throw it through CoinJoin. Can you explain to the freaks listening out there why that doesn't help you in regards to see there?
And there's nuance, like every other good thing in Bitcoin, is that it could help your forward privacy, but you've already linked the transactions before that happens, right? You've already linked all those UTXOs, as we said in the previous example.
Yep.
So you're hurting your privacy in that pre-element, and then you're hopefully, if you use CoinJoin correctly, you're helping your privacy on the forward scenario. But I mean, in a high fee environment, you're going to be paying significantly in fees. So I mean, the single best thing you can do in today's world, which we didn't have in 2017, is start to get used to Lightning and experimenting with Lightning, right? And you kind of you want to have your UTXOs in a position where you have the sufficient spending cash ready to go in Lightning, without too much on-chain fee burden for your cold storage. And like that's like kind of the ideal situation you want to be in. The problem is I don't know if it's a problem or a feature. The cool thing about this incentive structure is that users are naturally getting burned by fees, and then they learn and they try and be more efficient. Whether that user is an honest freak that is here, or that user is Coinbase and they're not batching transactions or whatnot, right? If you don't do it efficiently, you're going to pay more in fees and you're going to have to learn. Now, the problem is in a high fee environment, it becomes way more difficult, I think, for like a sustained high fee environment. It becomes way more costly, expensive for freaks, and painful for freaks to like try and learn these things. I've had very expensive lessons, and those expensive lessons happen at 5 sats per byte.
Yeah.
These lessons are going to get even more expensive, right?
Absolutely. As time goes on and number go up, your mistakes become even more costly. So better to get it done sooner than later. And, if you're going to have an expensive lesson, learn from it. So Matt's just thinking back to all the fees he's fucked up on Lightning and CoinJoins right now.
On that note, the infamous Tales from the Crypt node, TFTC stacking sats, has been moved to significantly better hardware.
Nice.
It is now being sponsored by Nodal Cloud. So it is on Nodal Cloud, and it's super high performance, and the minimum channel size has been reduced to 500,000 sats. So hopefully it's not another expensive lesson for me. I think that is hopefully going to be a sufficient minimum channel size. But any freaks who have been experimenting with Lightning might be aware that a lot of the large routing nodes have minimal channel sizes. A lot of them don't allow you to create channels that are lower than 4 million sats, which right now is over $2,000, which, quite honestly, like I'm just not fine with that. Mm-hmm. So what's really cool here is this node is a very well-connected node. Bosworth has given it a decent score. Okay, so our Bos score is pretty good, for whatever, if that means anything to you guys. And it allows you, and it's Tor only. It's Tor only. It's not run by a regulated company. So consider it.
Cool. Yeah, that's really awesome of the Nodal team to reach out to the node thief and put them in their data facility. That's great.
Yes. The node thief is working with Nodal Cloud now. So this is the node. So if you want to connect to it, I guess just go onto 1ml or ln.bigsun and type in stacking sats, and you'll be able to get that pub key, because obviously you can't copy it from an image. I guess you could use the QR code. But yeah, so I thought that was important to mention. I think it's going to be really interesting, guys, to see how, maybe my bias is showing again, but if it's not this time, I'm curious to see what happens, how these Lightning implementations and these Lightning wallets handle like a sustained high fee environment. We kind of haven't really dealt with it in a lot of like the really cool UX ways of dealing with it. I just feel like haven't been stress tested, like I've been loving Moon Wallet lately, MUUN wallet. I don't know what their fee assumptions are, or like Breeze Wallet or Phoenix, like what are their fee assumptions? Like how is that going to influence things? I think also that is there something about like the channel open if it like lasts longer than 2 weeks, you have issues or something like that? Am I mistaken there? Are you guys aware of that at all?
Thankfully, I haven't been in a situation where I have to experience that firsthand, but I believe there could be some challenges there. Certainly, there's a challenge when you're opening Lightning channels, as you cannot use RBF. You have if you want to bump your channel open, you have to do a child pay for parent, which is a little complex. But no, I haven't had anything opens last 2 weeks plus. How about you, Ben?
No, I don't think I have. Normally I try to get those in quickly in case something goes wrong. But I know on the closing side there was like a bunch of recent improvements where like before there's like this like flood and loop paper where like you couldn't bump the fee of your closing transaction. But now I think most Lightning implementations allow you to do anchor outputs, so you always have an output to bump the fee on, so you can make sure your closing transaction gets in the mempool or in a block, which is really good to see because if you close something on Thursday and then Friday fees jump up by 100 sats per byte, like now you could be screwed, and this could like help save you now, which is really good to see.
So and this is classic. I'm just gonna. It's unconfirmed. I'm not sure, but my understanding was that if the way it works, like if you open a channel and it takes longer than 2 weeks to confirm and then confirms, it just like automatically force closes based on like the game theory logic of Lightning.
Because the hash time lock is 2 weeks by default, so it expires.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So like all these little edge cases. So people ask me, they go, Matt, so what are you concerned about Lightning in a high fee environment? Well, first of all, to be absolutely clear, I think at the end of this high fee environment, Lightning will be way more robust and way better. And like that is the cool part about working in, live adversarial environments. But what I'm most concerned about is the shit I'm not concerned about. Like I feel like there's all these different edge cases that people don't think about that become apparent. They become apparent when you're in this high fee environment. Like what if we talked earlier about the minimal channel size, right? Like the concern about the minimal channel size is if your channel size is too small, the on-chain fee is going to eat up the majority of the channel at time of close. When is close going to happen? Is it going to happen in 5-6 years? Is close going to happen force closed by your channel partner in the middle of a super high fee environment? And we don't have like we don't have the experience or the data to like back any of that shit up, right?
Yeah, still people need to understand this is a highly nascent experimental network. It's made a lot of gains as terms of growth and stability, but there's still a lot more to be ironed out. Like for example, the Lightning Labs guys, they're working on a new type of channel type called anchor channels, where you'll have some fees. You'll have UTXOs that are not in the channel, but they're dedicated to paying the fees afterwards. So like situations and schemes like this, they're gonna be mitigated as new funding types are added to the network. So that'll be interesting to play out as that gets to clients. I think in LND 0.13 that should be out. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges that we're gonna see on the network as it grows and scales up. And there's gonna be a lot of edge cases that people hadn't even thought about. So in these times, you gotta really think about the amount of funds that you're opening to people. Like you shouldn't be opening up huge channels to strangers that can screw you on channel close, right? Like if you're doing a bigger channel, it's nicer if that's with someone who you're friends with, who you can send an email to or get on the phone with to sort out the issues you may have there.
We lost you for a bit there, for what it's worth. I think we all lost you.
He was perfect for me.
Oh wow. Well, that's good. I'm glad everyone else heard at least.
Okay. Yeah, just gotta have good channel partners for your real big channels. You're not going to want to have massive amounts of capital up with some NIM that you don't know and you don't know the reputation of.
Right. Most people should have like 1 or 2 large channels basically to a well-connected node and just call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely. open up to someone who's well connected to the network with a reputation, and get in on it.
We have our
make
boy.
sure for your
Oh, go on. Sorry.
make sure for like your inbound capacity too. You want to like have that be on like someone that's not going to close it as well, because that's like inbound capacity is like gold, where you don't want to lose that stuff, and that's a lot harder to get back than just reopening a channel. So to make sure, like, if you're like looping out, make sure it's through like a channel that you don't expect to close, not like just some random node that connected to you.
So we also have our boy Anthony Roning in the chat. We also have 6102 in the chat. Before I get there, don't trust in him. What the fuck? Thought Lightning was meant to be trustless. Do you have a thought to respond to him, Ben?
I mean, it is trustless, but it's just like it reduces a lot of headaches if you trust the other side of your of Lightning. Like, they can't steal your money, but they could screw you over and make you pay a high on-chain fee. So
they can burn the village down.
It's trustless in that you and I, Matt, we're not asking anyone's permission to open a channel between us. And hell, the network doesn't even need to know. It could be private, and we don't broadcast our state to each other. However, it's not trustless in that you are trusting the counterparty in certain situations.
I mean, first of all, every time I hear trustless, I just squint. It just bothers me. It's trust minimized. I think there's probably some edge cases where like money can be stolen as well, but most, like they drain a channel in a high fee environment. The channel's like a low amount. You don't have a minimal chan size. Like, maybe they can end up taking money from you in that respect. But the key element here is that if you want channel partners that you think will exist for a long period of time, right? Because if you have to keep opening and close channels, it's going to cost you significantly on-chain fees, and that's going to be your main fee burden. That's going to be your main cost for running a Lightning node. Like, I saw that on the stacking Sats node before it was taken, was that if you just had a large amount of small little channels, you're going to end up getting wrecked. You're going to lose a ton of money. And we have our boy Anthony Roning in here, or Roning. I apologize if I butchered your last name. He was bragging about using Lightning Pool to lease out liquidity. And that goes hand in hand with our boy Daddy Warbits that wants to talk about inbound capacity. And the cool thing about Lightning Pool is that you can pay people in a somewhat distributed marketplace to provide inbound liquidity to you. So, like, the way I look at Lightning is like, it's like an abacus, which is like those Chinese math devices, right? Where you move the beads from one side to the other, and the Bitcoin's moving from one side to the other, and you need to have the beads on your side to be able to spend. You need to have the beads on their side for them to spend to you. With Lightning Pool, you can get them to send, have beads on their side ready to send to you, and you pay them a fee for it. And a perfect example of not being ready for this high fee environment is Anthony has been bragging to me about his trustless 10% that he's been earning. And then meanwhile, the on-chain fees come in and they just fucking take all his profit and turn it into loss. And he just gets fucking kicked in the balls. So it's like a perfect example of something that like really needed to be stress tested with on-chain fees, like high on-chain fees. I guess
yeah.
Go.
I saw that the thread where he's like, oh, I kind of got screwed here. Where I think he was getting like a super good rate, like 10% back, but then the on-chain fee ate all of that, which really sucks. I know like Pool has some improvements to do to mitigate that. Where like right now your channel closes into your Lightning wallet, and then you have to redo a transaction to your Pool wallet, and then open a channel again. So you can reduce one of those transactions at least, but yeah, there are like, you kind of get screwed over there. And, I mean, the nature is of Lightning, you still have to do some on-chain transactions. So you always have to account for that. And Hopefully, Pool can start accounting for that. Maybe they'll like add a base fee plus the percent fee, so you could mitigate these closing fees.
I mean, my biggest concern about, well, first of all, Anthony, I love you. Okay, he wants the freaks to know that he hasn't closed his channel yet, so he hasn't lost any sats yet. That's fine. I'm just busting your balls. My biggest concern about Lightning, because I just experienced it myself for a fucking year, is it just really, really difficult for the average user to conceptualize on chain fee burden, right? It's just like who knows? Like humans just aren't good at conceptualizing like what is the right fee I should be charging for my node's liquidity? Like when is this channel going to get closed? And when I close it, how much is it going to cost me? Like these are things that are just not easy to price in if you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, like when you opened this thing, that was before this huge spikes. Fees might have been like 50 sats per byte, which isn't awful. But then, at the end of your contract, now it's 250. You kind of get screwed. So it's like kind of an impossible problem to solve. But I mean, there'll be mitigations. But yeah, you kind of just get screwed there.
I mean, I think min channel size kind of helps the most. Probably is like probably the single biggest thing, right? Because you're reducing the percentage of that on-chain fee burden period. But that kind of sucks, right? Like I saw our boy Grubels finally like decided he was going to dive headfirst into Lightning, and he was just like struck by like he couldn't open any channels with people like the large nodes because we were all min channel sizing them. Like 5 million sats. Like you need to pony up $3,000 to open a channel with us.
Yeah, Greg's like, oh look, there's a limit, so it's not trustless.
But that's the issue, right? Is like those parties don't know what to price themselves at. So the single biggest thing they could do is just make the channel size as high as like a higher rate.
Yeah. It's crazy. And then over time, even those min limits, they're even bigger channels as number goes up too. So, oh man.
Okay. So you guys got 14 minutes of very good 3D printer gun talk. Which, by the way, just to push back against the freaks that were a little bit upset about that, like it's the same idea. It's information wants to be free. It's part of the free open source movement. It's probably one of the strongest new defensive technologies we have, along with Bitcoin. So it definitely goes hand in hand. So I don't think it was off topic. Definitely not off topic for Citadel Dispatch. I mean, this is a Bitcoin first show, but it's not only a Bitcoin show. So then we had 14 minutes of that. We had an hour conversation about Lightning and transaction fees. So let's jump into the good stuff. Let's taproot activation. Are we excited about speedy trial getting merged into core? Are we going to have taproot in November? What should the freaks know about this?
I'm super excited. I mean, I was like jumping for joy when I saw the PR got merged, and I know it's super cool to see. I mean, it finally happened. Like I know, like 2 weeks ago, the sentiment on Twitter, like people were just like, "Is this thing even going to happen?" But now it's like, I'm running speedy trial on this laptop I'm using right now. Like, it's happening, and I mean, we're going to need miners to signal, but it seems like it's happening at least. And you can run the client if you want, and the release should be sometime this week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's at least candidate 1 right now. So, people should test it out if you're going to be using it, start messing around with it. I know a lot of people who've upgraded their nodes already. But yeah, all in all, it's just really exciting stuff, as Ben said. We have a clean path for miners to activate. And, chances of that are really, really high. We were hanging out after, what was it? After BitDevs, after we had dinner at the barbecue joint, and we went to some bar afterwards, and I was messing with Ben. I said, I don't know, this probably won't go through without a user-activated soft fork. Then he started bugging out. But yeah. I mean, a lot of Bitcoiners right now, they still have that PTSD from, SegWit and whatnot. But chances are this is going to be merged in. We're going to have it this year. And even if the miners don't activate and we have to do a user activated soft fork, it will be with good merit. And, we're going to have this very important upgrade to Bitcoin that's going to pave the way for even more important upgrades. So,
yeah,
really,
I think like what a lot of people miss is most or like every soft fork besides SegWit activated within like the first 3 months, and most of them were like pretty seamless, and Taproot should be the same, and like hopefully SegWit was just the anomaly, and and even if we are wrong and this thing its speedy trial fails, well, we can just use Luke Dax Jr.'s UASF client and actually get it in.
Yep.
Well, I mean, technically,
it's that Luke, but I'm glad we have it. I think Luke is a contrarian that we need in our community.
I mean, technically, Luke is just he's posted links to it. He's saying he's not connected to it, right? I guess Shinobi and at Grassfed Beef are claiming that they're behind that UASF fork. UASF client.
Huh. Guess I misread that. Shouts to them then.
I mean, Luke is probably involved as well. He's just, keeping a little bit distance.
As Luke does, yeah. But yeah, I mean, as much as you may not agree with that option and you might not want to run it, you can't complain with the option being there. We might actually need it if the miners don't activate. So that'll be good.
Yeah, and like, the UASF date is like the end of 2022, like October, November, something like that. So, it would be a while until we actually UASF, but it does give like a good amount of time for, the ecosystem to get ready if we are going to do it. So like, it won't be, it's not like, in like this November or something, we start like just chain splitting because this guy released this client. Like we should be mostly fine.
So with this runway that we have for this to get activated, I'm expecting a lot of wallets and institutions to have support for Taproot this year. Let's see how widespread it'll actually be because of the tech debt that these people have. And we know how long it took for SegWit to get activated on a lot of different exchanges. And
the worst wallet ever that is involved with the majority of transactions, whether that's through its own wallet or through its API, which I'm not going to name, finally merged SegWit like yesterday. I mean, I think you guys know which wallet I'm talking about. I don't even want to give them the...
I missed that. They actually did it. It wasn't just an April Fool's joke.
They merged it. It hasn't been actually released. Support isn't released yet, but if you're watching their repo, it's been merged.
Wow. It only took like 4 years.
4 years and like 300 sat per byte fee spike.
Oh man.
But what is 6102 wants me to put his Taproot timeline on? I'm guessing you sent that to me through something else. For the record, I currently think I'm going to lose my bet with Marty, which was the deadline was the end of this year, Taproot, and the loser has to pay 1 million sats to HRF's dev fund. But I also want to be clear that I'm, humbly believing that my simple 1 million sat bet helped incentivize Marty to push core devs to push Taproot, and that's why we're getting it before the end of the year. So you're welcome.
It was worth it. Small price to pay.
I am curious how many people actually implement Taproot. There is a PR into Bitcoin Core that adds spending functionality that's been open for a little while now, but I know that it might be close to actually getting merged. And that'd be really cool if, most people don't use Bitcoin Core, but that'd be awesome if it actually could use it. And, that's like a lot of things are built on top of Bitcoin Core. So maybe, it'd be trivial for other people to start implementing if Bitcoin Core has support. But we do have a problem as well where there's a new address type where for address encoding where we're using Batch32M instead of Batch32, but there's a niche bug in Batch32. So there will be some. We'll have to go through the same headache again of everyone implementing the ability to parse these addresses and then send to them. So hopefully that comes soon, but we'll see.
Gotta love it. Another address type on the way.
The last one, TM.
I mean, it's definitely not, right?
Nah, something else will come down the line. I'm not convinced we're close to ossification, but although it does feel like that with the struggle, the push and the pull from all the sides, I'm not convinced that we're close to ossification.
I found 6102's taproot timeline that he wanted me to post for the video freaks. So he's got the speedy trial activation window to August.
Great.
This is right?
Yeah.
So from April 24th to August 11th to activate via speedy trial. And taproot UASF BIP 8 lot equals true, which is the UASF, starts at the same point and runs through, what is that, October 14th, 2022?
Yeah. That's what it looks like on this chart. I thought it was earlier than, I thought it was like going to be like March 2022 or something like that, April 2022, but I don't know. I trust 6102 on that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like what? We expect 90%. We already have 90% of miners on taprootactivation.com, if you want to trust that, privately telling the guy who runs that site that they're going to signal for taproot, right? So really what happens is we talked about it this whole fucking time, and this is what's nice about speedy trial is like, fuck all the arguments. You have the speedy trial window. You have a 3-month window. And if the miners signal 90%, over 90%, then you don't have to worry about all the other arguments, right? Unless you have some kind of like hostile UASF to try and veto any kind of change, right? That's like the ultimate check.
Yep.
So we'll probably have taproot in November, December.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. Ben, you've been like taproot king over here. Like you love talking about taproot. Did we cover what you want to cover here?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call myself taproot king, but it's funny. I've like kind of fallen into this role where someone asked me to explain it to them. So I like read the BIPs a few times, and now I've become like the Twitter guy for taproot, but it's been fun.
Getting in on all the IRC chats is great, man. Great to see.
6102 is asking me why I trust taprootactivation.com. I do not trust taprootactivation.com. I said that I thought I made clear that I don't trust it. And I would actually go farther and say that just because miners signal doesn't mean that they're actually running the client. They can just lie. And they can actually signal that they're different miners and lie. This whole idea that we know which block is mined by which miner is a voluntary process where the miner doxes themselves. So they could theoretically, and fortunately for the Bitcoin network, I've never been a large pool, but if I was a large pool, I'd be fucking around with those numbers all the time. Like I would totally fucking pretend that I was other pools. So I'm glad we got that out of the way, 6102. Thank you. When taproot queen, Ben. That's from Ty. Why mention it? 612 is asking me why I mention it. I mention it because it's a data point. It's a fucking data point. So if that's what we have, then you're going to mention the data point. Okay, so we'll see if taproot gets activated now. 6102 has decided that he's going to single man stop it. The cool thing about Bitcoin, I think, and what makes Bitcoin valuable is that it's hard to fucking change. So if it's hard to change, then it means it's hard to change for the negative. And we should be grateful that every time there's a change, a significant change, that there is opposition, there's concern, because things that are easy to change will just almost always get corrupted. And that's, basically the exact opposite of what Bitcoin's about.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want someone just creating a merge request for built-in KYC or some garbage like that and getting through easily. It's an adversarial minded system, and we're grateful for that.
Awesome. So let's talk about discrete log contracts.
Yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Ben, I got to say, really excited about what you and the guys at SureBits are doing over there. Really exciting stuff.
It's been a ton of fun. We're like, I don't know, I like to say we're at like the 2018 part of Lightning, like where they were at, where like we have these really shitty clients that, they work, but you have to be technically minded to use it. You might have to use a command line. But it's happening, and like, we can actually do DLCs, and like me and my boss Chris, we did a DLC like if Elon showed up to the meetup last week. So it works, and
did he?
It's happening. He did not. So I got 100k sats, luckily.
I guess I gotta check the Oracle, right?
Yeah.
So do we want to do a quick overview here? Like that, I think the cool thing about that this idea is basically you're not solving the trust problem of who reports it, but you're solving the fact that who reports it is different than who settles the bet, right? Like usually right now, like you have a casino or something will set a line and they'll say, I have up on the screen right now, Evan created this DLC about will Citadel Dispatch today on 4/20/2021 exceed 2.5 hours. Usually a betting company would offer that, and they would take custody of your funds. They would know who made the bet, and they would settle those funds. With a DLC, the people who say what happened versus who has control of the funds being settled are separate. Would you agree on that premise?
Yeah, like that's like the whole point where our contract is like being executed by ourselves and like off chain. So like what we're doing here is like, we would take Evan's here announcement and put that into our software, and then we would just create transactions that would be based off what he's going to sign, and he'll sign, yes or no, depending on how long the show goes. And then with that signature, we're able to take that and execute our contract. So Evan normally doesn't even need to know that I used him or anyone used him, as well as we have this, thing where, the whole entire Bitcoin blockchain doesn't even know we used an Oracle. We're just doing like a, funding a multi-sig and sending the funds out of the multi-sig. So it's a really simple setup. It just requires some off-chain fancy cryptography.
Yeah, so last night I was using your bit of software. It's a little Java app called Crystal Bull. And I thought it was a really smooth experience running it for the most part. I got a couple issues with my Java runtime, but it's like a really nice UI, and you could just type everything out, say what the possible outputs are. It doesn't necessarily have to be a like a true or a false, right? You could have multiple potential outcomes. And once I got my announcement hex, I just posted it into oracles.suredbits.com, and I got it listed there. Added a little bit of a description. You really should flesh that out. We'll try to spell out the terms exactly. But that Oracle, that's separate from like an actual bet contract. You still need to pull it into something like Bitcoin S and into some sort of contract to say, okay, this is Ben's address to pay out to if condition A happens, and here's Evans if the other one happens, right?
Yeah. So like Crystal Bull is like just the standalone Oracle software. Like, that software could work if the Bitcoin network disappeared today. It's literally just like taking messages and signing them. But in conjunction with the Oracle software, we have like our DLC wallet that's built in Bitcoin S, where we can, I would paste in your announcement and then, type in like, a fee rate and different payouts I want for all of your different outcomes. And then, I could like set that up with the counterparty. They accept my contract, and they're like, okay, I'll take the other side of this bet. And then, once you actually sign your message of what happened, we could close our contract. And, Yeah, that's so like it's like there's like two completely separate entities here that I mean the clients need to get the signatures and announcement from the Oracle, but otherwise they're like completely independent and don't really need to talk to each other.
So, I mean, we're obviously trusting the Oracle to report it fairly, right? Like we have Evan, Evan's supposed to report whether or not this actually goes over 2.5 hours. The Holy Grail, right, is this idea of multiple oracles. Do you want to go into that a bit?
Yeah, so right now, if we were to like bet on the length of the show, I think Evan's the only Oracle, so we have to solely trust him. And Evan's a cool guy, but maybe he gets drunk after this and screws it up and signs the wrong message. And you don't maybe, or you just don't want to put your full trust in him. So we could do something where we could do like a 2 of 3 setup, where say like me, Matt, and Evan all do an oracle for how long this show goes, and then you could set up a contract that says like if 2 of 3 of them have the same answer, then we'll execute. If not, then we'll do a refund or something. So that way, if Evan does go get drunk and he signs the wrong message, well then we can still execute, and then we also have like this cryptographic signature from Evan saying he lied, so we could say like, hey, don't use Evan as an oracle, he lied. And so it gives you that nice thing where like you're not solely reliant on a single counterparty, but you can still execute your contract, and you're not like removing trust, but you're distributing it, and it should make it a lot harder. Because now, like, say if we're betting like $1 million, and Matt's like, okay, I'm just gonna go bribe Evan so I can get my contract. Now you have to bribe all like two of 3 of us, or if you have like 5 of 9, there's even more people to bribe, and it makes it harder to do. And yeah, and another really nice properties too is like all these oracles don't need to collaborate with each other. They're just going to post their announcements and post their signatures, and then the users go and just take in that data, and their wallet handles the rest. Whereas like we don't need to know each other exists. I'm just going to sign the message saying this thing's happening, and I don't need to know if someone's using me in a 1 of 1 contract, in a 2 of 3, in a 66 of 100. It could be whatever. It's just the Oracle just does their normal workflow.
Cool. So I take it a lot of the trust in Oracle is going to sort of function to similar systems in the space, where a lot of it is reputation based, right? And it could also develop like a sort of fee market for the oracles too, in that the oracles can charge users for the attestation hexes on their own platform, since these attestation hashes, they're not broadcast to like a blockchain. You have to distribute it somewhere. Like, for example, this is distributed on the SureBit site.
Yeah, we've been looking into different ways to monetize oracles, and I think like there's 2 really good ways you could do this. One is like what you said, where I just like pay like say like 100 sats for a Lightning invoice, and then you give me the signatures, and so now you're getting a little bit of income, and you're incentivized more to like not screw this up. Another way that we've seen that we came recently from like copying what John Carvalho is doing with his podcast, where he's like putting up a bounty basically to unlock it to so then like once say people pay 100,000 sats, then he distributes the podcast. You can do the same thing with like your Oracle signatures. Like once enough people pay up, then we're gonna unlock this and give the signatures out. And this provides a really nice mechanism. I mean, both of these do, where since you have like it's a market function now, the Oracle is getting signal of like what events that people want, as well as you can create like a market for how expensive and how trustworthy an Oracle would be. Because if I'm being an Oracle and I'm only it only costs 100 sats to unlock my signatures, versus like Kraken or something who costs 100,000 sats, and they're a lot if they're a lot more expensive, they might be a lot more trustworthy. And if they're getting enough volume to do that, they might be worth it. And the market's signaling that it's worth it to get the Kraken signatures versus Ben's signatures. And it's really cool that we're able to figure these things out, and hopefully we can start actually building this stuff soon.
Man, exciting stuff. We got a question asking, are there any other use cases for DLC other than gambling or betting?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can do like any like financial contract on this. So, like the Finance guys teased this out recently, but they're launching like a options contract trading. It's all built on top of DLCs. So then that's gonna be like a way for like people to generate like yield, like with some price risk. But if you're selling like covered calls for like 120K Bitcoin, you could like get some mild income in there. But if price goes up, you're gonna you'll sell your Bitcoin on accident, or not get as much back. But there's ways to use this where you could do like financial contracts. But otherwise, like today, it's not really a full fleshed out ecosystem. So we're probably just gonna be doing like gambling and betting initially. But you can build out like basically any contract on top of this.
Awesome. And just to tie it back into high fee environments, to make it clear to everyone, creating an event and creating an attestation, none of this is recorded on chain. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't tell at all that like which oracles was used. Like even the oracle can't tell that they were used. All it looks like is just like normal transaction funding a multisig, and then normal transaction spending from the multisig. So like none of this oracle stuff is even relevant to the blockchain. If, like I said, like if Bitcoin just completely disappeared today, the oracle would do the exact same thing and it still work. Like it's really just like about what the users are doing off chain. So like I mean, to break it down a little more, like what you're actually doing is you're creating like, so like for like this for your case where you have yes or no, does it go over 2.5 hours?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to do a contract with you, I would create 2 transactions, one for the yes case and one for the no case. And then I would give you a signatures for both that are encrypted, and they can only be decrypted by the actual oracle signature. So so if you just sign like yes or no, whatever one, I'll take that message, and then now I can use that as a private key or calculate a private key to actually decrypt the one signature that's valid. Now I have a valid transaction that I can spend on chain, and so it's all like all of your DLC logic is all happening off chain. So no one can tell like what your contract is, or what the terms were, what oracles you're using, or anything about it. All I can see is funds move from multisig to payout address.
Damn, music to my ears. Privacy for the oracles.
I saw another question from Anthony in the chat asking, how does Lightning fit into this?
Yeah, so like since these are all just like cryptographic stuff we're doing off chain, you can do it on literally any Bitcoin construction pretty much, as long as signatures and multisig are possible, which should be in any Bitcoin platform. So it can be done on Lightning, it can be done on Liquid, it can be done on Mr. Ruben Thompson's fancy like atomic swaps off chain thing. So like anything like that has multisig and signatures can be done, and it's like since we're getting Schnorr, you get that inherently with anything that's using Schnorr. So it'll be doable on Lightning. It might be a while before we can actually build out the proper tooling, because we do need we will need Schnorr on Lightning to do it. But it's coming, and it'll take a bit, but it's possible.
Now, is that because we need PTLCs, point in time lock contracts?
Yeah. So you need PTLCs to do it. I mean, you can do it without it by like you could do it like within a single channel. Like if I had a Lightning channel to you, we could build a contract on there. But it's not the best. It's not really Lightning. Like Pursuit of Lightning is like routing payments across the network, and to do like a contract route across the network, you need PTLCs. So because then here are just our points are just tweaked by the oracle's information, and when we get the signature, we get the correct information to claim the payment.
Damn. Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. Like the fees right now are 300 sats per byte. Like, am I ever going to make an on-chain transaction ever again? Like, we need it. We need to work with Lightning.
Yeah, get up to speed over there, Assured Bits guys. Now, hurry up! Why are you on the podcast?
We're working on it.
I
mean,
funny
a lot
tidbit.
of it's like waiting on the.
Sorry.
A lot of it. No worries. A lot of it's waiting on the Lightning implementations, actually, because all these Lightning implementations have like super heavy assumptions that everything that is in a Lightning channel is an HTLC, and to switch it to PTLCs, or even more so to switch it to be anything. It's going to take a lot of work, but it's coming, and eventually we'll have it. But there's going to be a lot of really good work put in by like the Lightning Labs team and Sea Lightning team and all those guys.
So to the freaks that are like, I'm just rolling my eyes, I'm glassy eyed, like they just keep saying DLCs over and over again. They're saying all these acronyms and shit. I don't understand. Like the cold hard truth is gambling is a massive fucking industry. The whole shitcoin industry sits on top of gambling. Regardless of Bitcoin, separate from all the stuff we exist in, gambling is already a massive industry. DLCs reduce that trust. It's going to expand the ability for people to access gambling, whether or not you agree with it morally. It is going to allow more innovation. I mean, one of the things we talked about earlier was, when you were at Guns and Bitcoin, you felt like the innovation was happening quicker than regulated companies. And that's what always happens, right? If people are able to innovate on the fringes without the friction of regulation, you're going to get cooler and cooler products. And this is kind of what this is going to do, I think, for gambling. Whether that's, I think the main thing is going to be sports gambling. I think a big low-hanging fruit is going to be election gambling, because in America, that's just straight up illegal. So you can't even have regulated companies offer that. But a lot of times it gets pigeonholed into gambling. And what people don't realize is way bigger than that. And this is something that I fell in love with as an early new coiner that didn't know better, that thought Augur was going to change the world, is that this idea that if we can create a trust minimized scenario where people can essentially bet on what the weather is going to be in 3 days, you are going to start to get way more accurate predictions than we have today. Because if you make an inaccurate prediction, you're going to fucking lose money. And if you make an accurate prediction, you're going to make money. And you compare that to like a weatherman's incentives currently, and the weatherman's incentives currently are just like clickbait, right? But if the weatherman's incentives are like tell you the weather as accurately as possible, it should be better.
Yeah, I think one of the great things too is like with Augur, you kind of have to like set up like who's going to be the oracle, and like those entities can get like regulated, versus like with this, they can't tell who's using who as an oracle, and like an oracle has almost like zero infrastructure to run. It's very, very simple to do. So it could be some dude with like dial-up internet in Nigeria, and he can still be an oracle just at the same capacity that Coinbase can. But if this guy's putting out signatures on things that are happening that Coinbase isn't willing to, he can create a market and provide value to people that Coinbase otherwise couldn't. So it really pushes that permissionless nature.
I mean, Augur tried to quote unquote solve the oracle problem. Well, you guys are just like, what if we just had like multiple trust minimized oracles and you just put them together in a fucking threshold? Right? It's like one of my favorite fucking I don't know, fables. It's not even a fable. I don't even know. Learning thing, case studies was growing up was like the Americans spent all this time trying to create like a pen that worked in anti-gravity, and the Russians just sent up a pencil.
Yeah, it's like we're just like kind of keep like they tried to like like you say, do this fancy thing. We're just like, oh, let's just do the simple thing of do it off chain and just use multiple oracles.
Just send up a fucking pencil.
We get the same thing a lot from like the Chainlink guys, where you're like, oh, we need this fancy blockchain that has all these economic incentives in case the oracle lies, and I want to strike them if they lie, but we have to then build the system where the richest guy might be able to change the actual outcome of what the oracle does, and it creates like all these games, versus like DLCs is like just have the user pick the oracles they trust, and it's just like keep it simple, keep it stupid, like use the oracles you want and execute your contract however you want. Like you don't need to build all these fancy systems that have blockchains and stuff.
100%. So discrete log contracts. Do you think should we talk about anything else in this subject, or?
I mean, so we should have a client out soon-ish for people to actually try out. This American HODL Peter McCormick bet, like put a fire under ass, actually get something useful for people to use. So I've been doing GUI work basically this entire week, and then like cleaning up some stuff in the back end to make it more user friendly. So hopefully, like sometime at like maybe beginning of next month, we'll have something that people can actually download and use. So if you guys actually want to use this stuff, it'll actually be actionable if you want to pay on-chain fees.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get this shit on Lightning, otherwise no one's gonna fucking use it. But I do appreciate you guys getting a client out, because I mean, I do kind of feel like a lot of this is just us just talking about it over and over again. It's just like it's not accessible, right? Like at the end of the day, like I was like so upset, and this is not against you guys. I mean, because I think you guys have actually been moving pretty fast. But like, there was no easy way to bet on the election this cycle with Bitcoin. I mean, in like a trust minimized way, right? And I feel like that should just have been a thing. Like that should just have been a very low hanging fruit thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to like more accessible options for people in terms of that. And it's kind of funny coming from the guy who's talking about, you know, being conservative and dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin.
We all know you're a gambler.
Gambling's fun. I would not have discovered Bitcoin if it wasn't for gambling. What got me on Bitcoin was fucking Black Tuesday, where they took out all the gambling sites by going for their funding methods. And I was like, fuck. Like if this thing just does US gambling, it's worth something. That value prop was immediately clear to me. And then I figured out the rest afterwards. Just like a fun little factoid. And by the way, cheers to all the ride or dies that are still here with us live 2 hours in. Like this is where the fun part happens live. So I appreciate you guys being here. Just a little factoid. I mean, this show was almost called The Discrete Log. I own the domains. So I thought that would have been a fun name, but it was a little bit too insular, so I didn't go with it.
That's a good name.
It's clever, right? But the problem is like, how do you spell discrete? Everyone spells it wrong with log. So do you spell it like discrete as in discretion? And I have both, and I didn't know which to do, so I just didn't do either. And that's where we stand. So great conversation so far, guys. We have a freak in the chat, and the chat has run away from me, so I don't remember who it is. So I apologize to you, freak. Asking about, we're going to go back to transaction fees because fuck it. An empty block was mined while all these transaction fees are just super expensive. Why did that happen? Why is that okay? Why shouldn't we be freaking out about it?
I mean, generally, empty blocks are mined like seconds after another block was just previously mined. And generally, just because like the mining software hasn't fully like caught up and found all the transactions that once included in the block. So it's still like, you know, it's going to use those couple seconds to continue mining on an empty block just so it's not wasting time. So like generally that's where they accidentally mine or not accidentally, but they'll mine an empty block just because they have like a couple seconds to mine on an empty block and they'd rather waste it mining on an empty block than, you know, not mine at all.
They're not really wasting money, right? Because they still have the block reward.
Yeah. You know, maybe as that goes away, it might be worth to wait, but I don't think that, you know.
Yeah, as the ratio changes, right? As the ratio shifts, that probably will happen less. You just kind of have to wait it out, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we had another freak asking if he should buy today or he should wait till tomorrow. Like, are we? How do we feel about that? Are we bullish on the price? I mean, if any freaks have been paying attention, I've been kind of outspoken. I'm extremely fucking bullish right now. Am I wrong in that? Or are you guys bullish? Are you guys feeling the FOMO? Or am I just like completely on cloud nine over here?
I think we're both very bullish. I think for whoever's asking, you should probably be dollar cost averaging, you know, whatever makes most sense for you, daily, weekly, monthly, as you get paid. I don't know. But yeah, Ben, how high do you see this thing going by, let's say, end of the year?
I love price predictions.
I have a couple bets that it'll go up to 500K by end of the year. I'm just betting a stake, but I think it could happen.
I like that number. That's been my number recently.
That's
Like the way.
I'll say my bet, given it can still hit 500K at the end of the cycle, which I think is going to run into early next year. But I think end of 2021, the price is going to be exactly $420,000, 609 six wait $420,696.15. That's my prediction.
Wait, what was it?
$420,696.15.
By December 31st.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, I mean, it seems bearish.
It might be. I honestly.
Wow, that's a beautiful number. You have the 420, you have the 69, and you have the 6.15. Now that we had Cortic put it in actual text.
Thank you, brother. Yes. I think that's the ballpark for what I'm aiming for. I mean, we've got a crazy year. We've got all the momentum behind us. It's that part in the cycle. And then you got all this crap going on macro-wise, like how much money has been printed in the last year. It's out of control.
So, I mean, like, people ask me, they go, Matt, you try and focus on the technology. You're in it for the tech. You care about sovereignty. You care about privacy. Why are you always talking about Bitcoin price predictions? And I think in like a bull market, we're getting inundated by so much fucking noise from mostly shitcoiners, but also from like some, charlatan Bitcoiners, that I think it's imperative on us that we bring our price predictions to the fold to just show the kind of urgency. Like, I feel like there's urgency here. I think there's, like, I'm watching all of these things unfold, and we're about to hit billionaire FOMO. We're about to hit corporate FOMO. We're about to hit government FOMO, right? And like, I would like the plebs to have as much as possible, and I don't want to say told you so at fucking $700,000, $800,000. I don't want to say told you so at that point. Like, that's not satisfying to me. I would like them to get in now, and I just want to shut the fuck up when we hit those prices, right?
Yeah, I'd rather you stack like it's gonna be 500K by end of year than you don't, like, you stack like maybe your actual prediction is 100K by end of year, and maybe you won't stack as much by then. But give out the most bullish number because it's going to infinity by eventually. So stack as much as you can now.
If you're in this game, you should be in this game at least 4 years, at least 8 years, whatever. Probably longer. So whatever you're doing short term shouldn't really matter as much. So just accumulate as much as you can responsibly, as quickly as possible.
So, 100% co-sign that one. I'll tell you, I did not stack hard enough. I should have stacked harder. The timeline was shorter than I realized. And this is coming from a perma bull. So it is what it is. Keep stacking. I'm just fucking stacking as hard as possible right now. And I really do think, like, it's just, I mean, if you think that things can't change quickly in a major way, where the fuck were you for the last year? Like, fucking our whole world changed on us. And it happened very fucking quickly, gradually, then suddenly, right? As our boy Parker says. So, I mean, before we end this great discussion, I mean, I really want to talk about privacy in a high fee environment. I've been a big advocate of Bitcoin users taking back their privacy. One thing that I haven't heard yet from the compliance bros, but they really dropped the ball on this, and I'm only mentioning it now because we're 2 hours in, so they didn't make it this far.
Exactly.
Is
download the good stuff,
right? Is the high fee environment, right? High fees, BlockFi users unaffected. They still get their 6%. So where do we stand in terms of if this is the new normal, if the new normal is over 50 sats per byte for the next year and a half, which I think is like a relatively conservative-ish estimate, 50 sats per byte. People would die for 50 sats per byte right now. Where do we see privacy in that kind of environment?
I mean, I know I used to have a bunch of stuff going through Join Market, and like once the mempool stopped clearing, all the liquidity just dried up, and so I know Join Market sucks now. There's like nowhere to generate fees, and I'm looking at Wasabi right now. There's 20 registered peers for the next coin join. So it's like all these coin join stuff, like you're really taking a hit with all the
It's
fees you have to
expensive
pay
as
now.
fuck.
Yeah, and like I mean the coordinator fees are already expensive, and now this is just adding on, and I hope we figure out other ways to do Bitcoin privately in a more efficient way. But yeah, it kind of sucks right now.
Yeah, it's not great for these sort of things. I don't really know what the solution is going to be long term. Are people just going to mix during the bear fee cycles or whatnot? It seems like part of the solution will be some of these privacy tools being developed on second layers. Lightning already has some properties to make it more private than on chain, at least. How do we take that to the next level? Then, Matt, I think you were sort of alluding to this on Twitter, like, what if some sort of coin join comes to L2 on Liquid, and what does that look like? That would be really interesting too, but you also need to be conscious of the peg-ins and peg-outs, both on Lightning and on Liquid, as data can be revealed there. So it's not really a super straightforward thing, unless you're at least on those layers.
The concern there is timing analysis, right?
Yeah, by and large, it's timing analysis. I would say that's first and foremost, but I'm sure there's some other data that gets leaked in the pegs.
I think things like PayJoin like really shine in these moments where like it's like I'm already making a payment to like this PTC Pay server, but now I'm just doing it in a private way where we're mixing funds and like hiding the amount we're actually sending. So like things like that, like you're already making a transaction, you're not like doing extra transactions to add privacy. So like stuff like that aids in a lot where you're gonna do a transaction anyway, so may as well add some privacy to it. So hopefully those start getting implemented more, or just invented, where we have like ways to do like private transactions where you're doing a transaction anyways, instead of like having to do extra transactions to add privacy to your stack.
Right, because PayJoin is you're just making making your regular transaction anyway, and you break a heuristic. But with CoinJoin, you're already making extra transactions. I just feel like right now I'm not making any on-chain transactions, period. I just won't do it. I'm waiting and seeing, but maybe I get my hand forced if the fee environment continues, right? So maybe that dynamic changes. Maybe this is because it's like a sudden type of thing. I do think Lightning will help a lot. To Evan's point, I really feel like what we need is, and this is why I mentioned it with Liquid, is first of all with Liquid, you have worse trust assumptions, right? Like you're trusting the Federation to a degree, and let's dive into Liquid a little bit. You're trusting the Federation to a degree. It's almost like a quasi-custodial, but it's custodial in a multi-sig environment. There's some questions there about when it drops down to a 2 of 3 that's just controlled by Blockstream, where then it's just custodial in a regular environment. Mm-hmm. But the on-chain fee burden is way easier to conceptualize than a Lightning situation. Because with Lightning, you have all these channels, you're managing these different channels, and you don't know if they're going to close on you or not, right? And this is what we talked about earlier with 6102, right? Where there's some level of trust. Does that channel partner close on you in the worst possible fucking time? With Liquid, it's like you only pay that on-chain fee when you swap back, and you pick when you swap back. So my biggest concern is users that have large amounts of UTXOs, right? That need consolidating in a relatively private way, and that's not a very easy. It's not an easy thing to do. There's no real easy way to do that. Some people will claim that Wabi Sabi, the upcoming Wasabi 2.0, will solve that use case. I'll believe it when I see it. I commend them for working on it. But in my mind, like if you had some kind of client that just randomly pegged into Liquid and then shuffled forever until you stopped it, could kind of end up in a situation where you're able to. But is that like just too complicated? Is that just too difficult? Is that just, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts in here?
Yeah, I mean, there's just like a lot of complexities there, and like, you know, none of the stuff is implemented, so it's going to be a while before it actually comes out. And yeah, I mean, like being able to like use Liquid to mix would be like awesome, but also it's like, you know, how many people are actually using Liquid? You know, if you're the one guy that's mixing on Liquid, you're not really getting privacy. So you need like to like build up, you know, another anonymity set over, you know, over there. And so yeah, I think it would be awesome if we actually implement all this stuff, but you know, there's not really a lot of incentives to do it yet, just because like no one really uses Liquid, so there's no crowd to hide among. But you know, if a bunch of exchanges started implementing Liquid to save on fees, which you know they might actually do right now with all this you know, stuff going on, maybe they will, but you know, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much no one's using Liquid right now.
Nope. Rookie numbers, we got to pump them up.
But
And,
you
know,
can
really
right now.
too.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we've got under 70 million on Lightning Network too.
Right now in Liquid, you get 0.1 sat per byte. So like, if this fee bump doesn't do it, what fucking does it? I mean, we'll see. I mean, we don't have that many exchanges supporting it. I'm not trying to like, guys. I'm a fucking hyperbole. Like, I think like Bitcoin pumps like fucking crazy. I just, you know, as a sovereign user, I just wonder how that affects me and how we work from here, right? Like in this kind of environment. That's all. Well, I love you both. I mean, do either of you guys? I don't want to extend this longer than it needs to be extended. I mean, I think this has been a great conversation. Do either of you guys have, you know, any last things you want to talk about before we wrap this thing up?
I wanted to talk more to Evan about ossification because he still thinks he thinks we're not going to ossify after Taproot, and I think we might.
So the only chain that is fully ossified so far is Dogecoin, and it's pumping like fuck. So do we if is Bitcoin going to ossify after Taproot? Is that okay? Do we want more development? Is Bitcoin to survive? Let's talk about this.
Okay, so first of all, has Dogecoin really ossified? I mean, as it stands right now, there's no activity. It probably hasn't gotten an upgrade since what 2014 or something, 2016. I don't
literally the definition of ossification. Like there's no one's fucking working on it.
But there's a possibility that, you know, let's say more institutions grab it or whatever, and more basketball teams are using it for merch. Like, is there anything really stopping the developers from getting it rolling again and adding SegWit and adding Taproot, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, I don't think anyone's actually. There's no proper Dogecoiners out there. Like, there's no one running a Dogecoin node and like giving a shit.
I know. Actually, that has been miserable. I had to sync up a Dogecoin node for a friend who had some bags he had to offload. And man, you can't even do it practically without using like a torrent that gets you the majority of the blockchain and just getting like the last 2 weeks. It's
It's a
ridiculous.
broken chain. They're all on Robinhood and like Binance, and they're keeping it on exchange. I mean, there's another aspect there, by the way. Like, I think Litecoin might be fucked because they're merge mined, and no one's really talking about that. But we can
I mean,
continue on the ossification
most,
talk.
most coins that are proof of work that aren't Bitcoin are fucked, regardless.
True. So let's talk about ossification.
So Ben, what do we need to get in before you'd be happy with everything ossifying?
What is ossification? Well, for the freaks, real quick. Ossification is when nothing changes. We're done. The protocol's done. We're good. Never change again. Hit it, Ben.
Yeah, I think we definitely want taproot. We definitely want sig hash, any priv out,
Yes.
which will let us do fancy things like L2 and make Lightning a lot better.
Hell yes.
We want aggregate signatures, so we can have coin joins be cheaper than regular transactions. Up check template verify would be cool. I don't think that's a must-have, but it would make things like vaults a lot easier to do. Otherwise, I don't know. I think like just getting signature aggregation and any priv out would be monumentous.
Hell yeah. Now, cross input signature aggregation, do you think we're going to ever get that? And if it does come to fruition and we have a good solution for it that people agree on, do you think there will be pushback from any major institutions because of the privacy enhancements it sort of enables?
People say this about Taproot, and it's like not true at all. I don't think people would say it about that. Like, I don't know. Like it would have privacy enhancements. Also, you could just say like it makes transactions cheaper, and like that's why we're doing it. Like it's really not like making transactions more private. It's just changing the incentives to do larger transactions. Yeah, it's like to do larger transactions, which coin joins are. So I don't know. I mean, and even if they do want to try and stop it, like they tried that with Segwit and didn't do too well. So good luck.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot from camps that are like saying, okay, Bitcoin's been taken over by corporations, and because of this, real privacy enhancements cannot come to the chain. And I think that's a complete fiction. And I think that we're seeing this play out with Taproot, and I think something similar can play out with cross-input signature aggregation. And I think once we get those two things in, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. Why wouldn't you coin join if it's going to be cheaper?
Yeah. So Evan, do you think Taproot is the last soft fork? Because like the way I see it is like, everyone agrees or basically 99.99% of people are like down with Taproot and want it. It's just the activation method that people are like arguing over. So it's like, do we have ossification just because of activation methods, or are we like maybe next we're doing like sig hash any priv out, and like are we gonna we'll still figure it out just because everyone wants this thing and the activation method isn't a permanent change to the protocol. It's just like while we signaling for activation. So I think like we still could move on from this, but I think you were saying otherwise, at least at the bar.
No, I think that we've sort of proven that this is a blockchain for the people, and the people who use it. Yeah, I mean, big features like that. I think there's always going to be enough people fighting for and championing and trying to figure out. It's gonna be with like more minute upgrades that see more pushback. It's like, okay, do we really need this? Or are the gains really that much of a difference maker? And I don't think you could say the same about Taproot or signature aggregation. I think those are really game changers, for lack of a different phrase.
Is ossification even possible for something that is actually used?
See, that's the thing. Like, I also foresee that Bitcoin can be something where, okay, the upgrades or changes, they really slow down, but if someone comes along with a great upgrade or a great discovery in terms of cryptography or whatnot, people are going to still want that to go in as long as, like you said, people are using it. And it's not a ghost fucking chain like Dogecoin is.
Yeah, no one uses Dogecoin. So my basis of my so-called Bitcoin maximalism, right? So where does my conviction come from that I am so bullish on Bitcoin? A lot of it comes from the Bitcoin Cash War, Segwit 2x war of 2017, right? And I feel like a lot of people took the wrong thing away from it because it was such a crappy fork. Both Segwit 2x, run by Garzik, off by one error, and Bitcoin Cash, you had the Bitmain guys and Roger Ver funding it. Like, you didn't have any really quality developers involved in those projects. In a worst case scenario where, let's say, the shitcoiners were close to being right? And you have a chain or some kind of new technology that is just a way better money than Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
A hard fork to Bitcoin that adds that benefit and keeps the current ledger at the tip, I think, would have more value than that competing ledger, because I think the Bitcoin ledger itself, I think the actual UTXO set at like consensus tip has a tremendous amount of value that is undercounted. What are your thoughts on that?
I kind of disagree. Like, I think you have to soft fork it into Bitcoin or figure out a way to like Bitcoin has to actually stop for you to be able to do that. Because this is kind of a bad example, but like Bcash, had the same starting UTXO set, but like no one valued that. So like,
But it was a piece of shit.
yeah, but like Bitcoin has to be like actually failed for us to like switch over, and I don't really see how that happened. Like, at the end of the day, you can just soft fork a fix so almost anything.
My point is like that hard fork mechanism, especially if you stay on the same algo, right? It's a very interesting free market upgrade mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
I wonder if we're blinded by the fact that the previous attempts have just been so shitty, right? Like, we've had like Bitcoin Gold and like Bitcoin Cash and like Bitcoin Diamond. Like, they're all garbage. They all have some elements of like pre-mines and airdrops and fucking
No one's
fucked up difficulties that like basically created pre-mines.
I mean, I guess we actually will need to do one because of the block timestamp will overflow in 2106. So unless we figure out how to soft fork a fix, which no one has come up with in 12 years, we will have to do a hard fork there. So maybe, yeah, I guess you are right.
I don't think that's a negative. Like, I think my point is I know my point is that if a critical mass of demand, wants something, like, it'll fucking happen. And like, can we measure that critical mass of demand? No, it's like almost impossible to measure ahead of time. But afterwards, it's kind of very clear to measure. But it only happens when like the fire is so hot that like you really fucking need it. You're not gonna. These are not the kind of changes that happen preemptively.
Yeah, that's true. As we go on forward, more of the changes will be because of the push comes to shove out of necessity.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin will still ossify eventually. Like, TCP/IP, like that is fully ossified. Like IPv6 came out in like late '90s. 20 years later, we still only have like 10 or 20% adoption. Yeah, Jay Maurice just said the same thing in the chat. Like, it's gonna take a while for it's gonna happen, but eventually it's just like everyone's just using the stuff, and there's no reason to upgrade because we've added all the important things. There's no like huge increases that like things like taproot and stick hash any preval can add. So it just people just get complacent with their software and let it keep going.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Bitcoin is this living organism, and I just find it hard to believe. I just find it hard to believe that the money of the world forever is just going to stop changing. But if it does, I'm fine with that too. But my guess is it doesn't, and my guess is as long as you have a stake in the ledger, you're fine. Because whenever these forks happen, you have both. You have both sides of that fork. And I think that to me, that's the coolest part. To me, the coolest part was that Bcash happened. And if you just were in a coma, you had no idea, you were unaffected, right? And I think that's undercounted. Like, I think people don't appreciate, the hardcores don't appreciate how cool that is. That, I mean, anyone can fork Bitcoin tomorrow. If I wanted to fork Bitcoin tomorrow with like a trustworthy team, I could do it. And the majority of the market is going to say you're fucking full of shit, and they're not going to value it, and they're just going to dump my side of the fork if there's a market for it, right? But anyone can fucking do it. So if there's a fucking demand for it, then someone's going to fucking do it. And it's hard to imagine a situation where you don't have that kind of demand at some point in the future for some kind of upgrade.
So then, like, what do you think is different between Bitcoin and the internet protocol that will allow it to continue making changes?
The difference between the internet protocol and Bitcoin is that with Bitcoin, I get both sides of the fork. I have like there's like incentives, right? There's like a proper incentive structure there. Like you have skin in the game automatically, but also like you can ignore it and just have just as much skin in the game and be fine. I think there's something there. I don't know. I haven't talked about this really since 2017, but this is really where my Bitcoin maximalism comes from. Is that I truly think that in a critical mass situation, if there's some kind of technology that we don't know right now, right, and it just comes out in the future, that we can just take the Bitcoin ledger, we can fork it, we can fork our ledger on top of whatever their fucking technology is. We can start with our ledger balances, and that fucking chain or whatever it is will have more value than whatever the competing thing is. It's like our ultimate defense strategy.
Yeah, who knows what will happen when we get to that point. Get side chains or BIP 300, 301. Things are going to get crazy.
I mean,
we can't even like, fathom what things are going to look like then.
Right? Like, I mean, we're saying we're ossifying now in the year 2021 or the year 2022. Like, who the fuck do we think we are? Like, are we being?
That's why I'm saying that I don't think we're even close. Like, maybe things will slow down here and there, but there's still a lot of unknowns out there. How can you say that confidently?
And who died and said ossification is the best part? Like, what if we're so hard to change? Is that good? That should be good enough, right? Like, why do you need full ossification? Why do you need
exactly? What bug might be in the code? What edge case we haven't tested for is in there? There's probably going to be a ton of situations that come up at different points during the lifespan of Bitcoin that minor tweaks need to be made like that. So to say like, oh, okay, we lock it in like this forever, well, that's not exactly how this decentralized consensus thing works out, you know?
If we
Yeah.
have,
Oh, I think like
go.
ossification's like descriptive.
There's a lag. I'm
I
sorry.
think like ossification's like a descriptive thing, not like a prescriptive, where you're like it's like, oh, we haven't had a change in 10 years. I guess we've ossified. It's not going to be like taproot's activated, tomorrow, and then we go like, all right, today is ossification where no more changes. It's just going to be like a result of
shoot for, like, it's, I see where people like the idea of certainty, certainly with Bitcoin supply schedule. That's the best thing, the certainty that Bitcoin gives us. But as far as it relates to ossification, it's like that shouldn't be the goal, like,
yeah,
you should be accepting of stuff that makes this thing better for everyone.
yeah, it should just be a result of it getting too big, and people can't coordinate on it to make changes anymore. Like, it shouldn't be just someone raise a flag, no more changes.
Yeah, it's a silly thing to be excited about, in my opinion.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like if we live in a world where we have like 30 attempted hard forks and they all trend to 0, and then like the 31st was needed and doesn't trend to 0 and replaces the main chain, like I'm cool with that. Like that's close enough to ossification for me. It's that's how Bitcoin upgrades in like the most dirty fucking way possible, but it's decentralized, and that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's nothing like it. And none of these jokers and spots 2 to however hundreds of thousands of shitcoins there are now can even hold a candle to it.
I love you both. This has been a great conversation. To the freaks, go follow both these boys. They will be back on the show at Evan Kaludis and at Ben the Carmen. Final thoughts, I guess, to either of you guys?
I thought you were racing to get it done before 6:29, so Evan would sign a different message.
On Twitter, we're saying from the end of the countdown to the start.
We're tight. We're pretty tight right now.
We might have to do a instant replay at the end of the show to figure out. I mean, freaks and Citadel builders, I will sign it. I mean,
I'm pretty sure you guys are just, you're not talking as much as you would be otherwise because you're trying to juice this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, which way did Evan bet and how much? So, point shaving is what they call it, right?
I guess I have one more question. Are both of you guys coming to Bitcoin Miami, Bitcoin 2021?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's going to be such a great time. We're going to have so much fun.
Fuck yes. To the observant freaks, they might have noticed me wearing a new Citadel hat. I will be bringing a bunch of them to Miami if you want one.
Wait, where's this hat? I don't see your picture.
Yeah, your video's not on.
Oh yeah, I mean you guys don't see it right now, but I was teasing it last week. And some freaks picked up on it. They realized that it exists. It does exist, and I will be bringing them to Miami. I don't want your fucking mailing addresses, so it will have to happen in person.
Lightning only too, I assume.
Yeah, Lightning. You can pay me in cash, and I'll just flip that into Bitcoin if I need to. But yeah, I Lightning preferred.
Yeah, still accept the on-chain transactions, right? He's just not going to send them.
Oh, I have one more question actually before we leave, since you guys didn't have final thoughts, so I'm just going to do it myself. There was some talk about spooks on Twitter.
At the conference?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I think you mentioned that you saw some spooks at GNB, Guns and Bitcoin. I think I've always said personally, like Bitcoiners should be aware, like there's spooks among us. I got accused of being a spook, which I appreciate. Slay your heroes. Don't trust me. I don't want you to trust me. What I am concerned about a bit is we're talking about open source code here. I think we're talking about code above we're talking about code and ideas above people, I think. And I have been noticing like this rush recently to basically label people you dislike for other reasons as spooks. And I think it's a little bit intellectually lazy. I don't like it. I don't like it. It feels like cancel culture to me. There are definitely spooks among us. I might be a spook. I am not saying otherwise. Evan, very well might be a spook. He's one of my good friends. That would be unfortunate.
Yes.
I think that people you don't expect to be spooks are the most likely to be spooks. But I also, at the same time, don't like this idea of like a mob blindly just going spook to shut up someone they dislike. So do you guys have any feelings about this?
Yeah, I think it's been kind of weird on Twitter, like people just throwing up spook like randomly. It kind of came out of nowhere, but yeah, I feel like you should be innocent until proven guilty. And I don't know, I feel like most people are generally good Bitcoiners. I mean, you should keep your guard up just in case, but I mean, I don't think any of you two are a spook. I'll give you that.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you should be operating under the assumption that everyone's a spook anyway. Like, why would you be talking about things that are sensitive that you wouldn't want a Fed knowing in a public space? Like when you're going to any of these conferences, you got to be selective about what you're talking about. You don't want to just spill the beans because you're amongst a bunch of Bitcoiners and you feel comfortable. That's foolish.
Yeah, don't go to like the conference, be like, "Hi, I'm John Smith. I have 7 Bitcoin, and I store it all on a cold card." Like,
like stuff like that.
Yeah, but like you can you need to like be conscious of that, but like don't go and don't also ask those people those questions. Like at BitDevs last week, some dude asked me how much Bitcoin I have. I was like, dude, don't you never ask a Bitcoiner that, and like.
Yeah,
so don't be.
Yeah, but at least
stupid
you know that
yourself.
guy's not a spook, though.
It's just rude in general, even if you're not a Bitcoiner. Like, do you
Right.
go around asking your buddies how much they have in their bank account or how much they have in stocks? Like, no, that's not
But
a normal thing to ask a person, right?
I assume like spook training, like they tell you, like don't ask how much Bitcoin they own,
Yeah.
But maybe that's what the spook wants you to think.
Right? They're updating their guide as they listen to us. But yeah, I'm gonna just say that the guy front row at Guns and Bitcoin and like the olive drab whatever hat, that guy was totally the spook. Oh man, but irregardless, I hope if you guys were there, you just followed those rules. Just didn't go and spill your stash info or anything sensitive to people who didn't need to know it. It's just how you should treat your conversations with anyone in the space. Why does someone have to know something sensitive like that? Unless they're your business partner or something.
Yeah, and don't do anything incriminating with someone you don't like really trust. Like don't go to the strip club with some random guy you just
strip clubs aren't crimes.
They're not. You get blackmailed, right?
Or lots of people end up doing crimes before or after a strip club.
Oh man.
Well, I'm glad we had this nice, productive spook conversation to push this right to the limit of this DLC. So now you have to actually go back and check. I love both you guys. Follow Ben at Ben the Carmen on Twitter. Follow Evan Kalutis at Evan Kalutis on Twitter. Both of them will be back on Citadel Dispatch. Ben is working with Sured Bits. You can look them up. Fantastic company. Evan Kalutis is the project lead at Zeus, one of the best Lightning wallets, if not the best Lightning wallet on mobile to connect back to your node.
And this is really close to iOS App Store. Like in the next week or two, it's going to be on there. So no more test flight. Get excited.
How does that work? How does the test flight versus real App Store work? Do you have to like prove yourself on test flight?
Since we're a company in cryptocurrency or finance, you can't release an app onto the main app store without an LLC that has the same, or a corporation that has the same name as the app that you're publishing, right? So if I wanted to name my company like Olympus or something, I couldn't publish the Zeus LN app. Stupid rule. And then you got to go and you got to get a business ID from this other company that Apple works with. It's called the DUNS number. And that's what just came in. So we were going to change our account type and then submit the version, the latest version, version 0.5.1. We're going to submit that to the App Store. So within 2 weeks in quotes, we'll be on
So
there.
the real lesson is if you're using iOS, like, come on, guys, like, we're just like 1 week or 2 weeks away at any given time for just like not having any Bitcoin wallets available. Like,
Yeah.
what are you even fucking doing?
I mean, there's a setting on iOS that's on by default that will delete your app from your phone if it gets pulled from the iOS App Store. You got to go in and tell your phone not to do that shit for you not to be like 1984 out of all your users' apps. Like, that's ridiculous.
I've been using Calyx Android recently, up from Graphene.
Nice.
Love it. Big fan.
So what are the main differences? Does it have Google Play services built in?
It has Micro G, which is like open source Google Play services. The high arching, the high level comment I would make is that you can. It works better as like a daily driver, but I don't think it's as secure as something like Graphene. So like my photos are fantastic. I'm able to use, a mainstream app like a Lyft or a Uber or something if I need to, because of the Micro G. It's still de-Googled, but like it feels like, and the performance is better. It's a way faster phone. It feels like a flagship. Like I'm using Calyx on Pixel 5. It feels like I'm using close to a flagship phone, which my tech geek in me enjoys. But at the same time, like Graphene is obviously more secure. I mean, like there's a bunch of things they did to harden it, which is what makes it less performant than Calyx. But also on top of it, like Calyx doesn't sign their releases, for instance, which is something that me as a honest pleb can immediately notice is like bad practice. And they said they're going to start doing that, right? But on Graphene, not only do they sign the releases, they have a separate app that you can install on a separate Android phone, and you can scan a QR code to verify. It's the coolest fucking process. They call it the Auditor app. So they're on different levels. They're doing different things. It's apples and oranges. But regardless, I know I can sideload Zeus.
Tell you.
Apple users can't, right?
Nope. You are at the discretion of Apple. Yeah, it's really just as fortunate as that. Both Google and Apple have their walled gardens. It's just that Apple's is ridiculous. And I'm just hoping for their desktop users, Mac OS users, like that sort of lock signing doesn't come to the desktop all the way. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Fuck yes. Ben, I'm gonna come visit you in Austin, I think next month for the next Bit Devs. I'm looking forward to that.
Parker's saying next month's gonna be bigger. He's gonna get Sailor and Ross Stevens here, so might be a good one.
Shit, Ben, you know what we didn't talk about?
Gus's.
Gus's. You got to take Matt to Gus's, please.
What's Gus's? Let's talk about it.
So where are they from? It's like Memphis or Tennessee. It's like hot fried chicken. It's incredible. I went twice. I took my girlfriend after Ben had taken a bunch of G&B.
She came down with you.
Yeah, she met us like halfway through the trip. So really during the cold days. So that wasn't great. But, we still had a great time with everyone. It was amazing.
Me and Evan are such brothers that we both know our ladies' names, and we will not dox them on air. That's awesome that you brought her. Yeah,
it was awesome. So we need to give her a NIM name or something.
Yeah. So
something.
Cheers to that, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all the freaks that joined us live or die, ride or die, joined us in the live chat. Thanks to all the freaks that joined us via the audio streams. I'm actually, you just mentioned Michael Saylor. I'm doing Sailor Academy tomorrow with Stefan, and hopefully Michael Saylor himself is going to join. So I'm looking forward to that. His
Nice.
free educational course. We have RHR on Thursday. And of course, we have another Citadel Dispatch on Bitcoin Tuesday of next week. I think next week we're going to have Keto and NVK and maybe a special guest appearance by Wiz because of these transaction fees. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice.
Cheers, guys. Love you all. Love you, freaks. Thanks for joining us. Got two special announcements here after the music is done. The first thing is it appears my dog consumed a whole half a pie pizza while I was recording. It might be blamed on me. It is yet to be seen. We will go over that on Rabbit Hole Recap on Thursday. I only had one slice, I swear, right before we recorded. The second thing is we have our boy Daddy Warbits, freak till the end, ride or die. He's been in almost every single live chat this whole fucking time. Is donated two tickets to Bitcoin 2021, which are going to be quite valuable. And only two freaks are going to get it. It's 2 general admission tickets. You either have to post this on Twitter. One person posts this on Twitter. One person's posts this in the Sphinx tribe. The first one in each side gets it. And it's Bitcoin is designed to pump forever, Matt. If you post that without any typos and you're the first one on Twitter or you're the first one in the Sphinx tribe, Citadel Dispatch Sphinx tribe, not the TFTC Sphinx tribe, then you get the general admission ticket. Shout out to Daddy Warbits for being so fucking cool about that. I love all you freaks. Thank you for joining us for another Citadel Dispatch. You guys make it worth it. I will see you on Thursday for Rabbit Hole Recap, and I will see you next week on Tuesday for the next Citadel Dispatch. Love all y'all. Stay humble. Stack sat.